even though this was mainly due to Huang Yueli's experienced operation, but it was undeniable that this method of removing impurities had an absolute advantage itself. But what was disappointing was none of the armament masters present were unable to see her method clearly. The crowd started to inquire around mutually. Did you see clearly the method which Miss Bai displayed earlier? I didn't. How about you? I didn't too. Don't lie to me. You really didn't see it clearly? This is not a time to be selfish. As long as you have seen one hand gesture clearly, just share with everyone. If we all shared what we saw, then perhaps we might even made up an entire set of method. At least we can ascertain it mutually. Do you think I'm silly? Think I don't understand this logic? But she's simply too fast and I really didn't see it clearly. Don't tell me you've at least seen one hand gesture. I also, the armament masters looked at one another in dismay, and at one point of time, they started to suspect if there was something wrong with their intellect. To think, none of them was able to see through Huang Yueli's method at all. Huang Yueli raised both her hands and said, I've already displayed the 3 steps to remove the impurities in the Scarlet Thunder Steel. Next I shall now demonstrate the next question. Wait a minute, Miss Bai, no Master Bai. The 3 steps which you had demonstrated earlier, we didn't manage to see it clearly, so could you please demonstrate it once again? Please, please. Your method is simply too outstanding, but it's simply too fast. Please can you demonstrate just one more time? One of the armament master was simply too anxious as he couldn't help but cried out loudly. The crowd turned around and took a look and immediately recognized who it was. This armament master had a 3rd tier badge pinned on his chest and he looked very young, at most only 20+ years old. It's Master Lin Yang, the youngest and most talented 3rd tier armament master in our Sky Cloud City. His future is said to be boundless. Whatever most talented and youngest armament master, can you even compare them with Miss Bai? Miss Bai is only 14 this year. Of course you can't compare with Miss Bai. But this Miss Bai is simply too abnormal, completely defying logic. Lin Yang is at least a normal talent. That's true. I've long heard that Lin Yang's character is rash and unable to hold his footing, and seeing this today, it seems to be true. He actually jumped right out and asked Miss Bai to redemonstrate one more time. What's wrong with him? This kind of exclusive method of refining armaments, who would even reveal it easily? If it wasn't for today's special occasion, she probably won't even demonstrate publicly. The crowd was totally speechless, feeling that Lin Yang was going to get into big trouble. At least he would be shamed by Huang Yueli, losing all his face. Those armament masters there, who wouldn't want to take another look? But everyone knew the rules of the society and could tell that she wasn't willing, so who would be so moronic to go up and look for a scolding? Huang Yueli's hand movements halted for a moment as she raised her head up. You want me to redemonstrate one more time? Her tone was peaceful, not showing any emotions. But the crowd had already injected their own guesses and were sweating for Lin Yang. Unfortunately, Lin Yang himself didn't notice anything amiss and couldn't stop himself from continuing. That's right, Master Bai. Your method is something which I had never seen in my entire life. Even President who in our armament guild don't have such outstanding methods like yours. I beg you to teach me, please. No matter what conditions you ask for, I agree to it all. You can also listen on. Cold sweat kept forming on the armament masters' foreheads who crowded around. This Lin Yang was really a blockhead. President who was seated up in the VIP seating. How dare he actually say President whose methods weren't good enough? Had he even realized that he had unknowingly offended someone? When Huang Yueli heard what he said, she however expressed slight interest as her gaze shifted from his youthful face to the badge pinned in front of his chest. So young and his already a 3rd tier armament master, his innate talent was really not bad. Huang Yueli instantly made up some plans as she smiled. This master here, you seem to have some interest in my method, and I'm very glad to have some interaction with everyone here, so there's no need to ask for it. In fact, since I've already started up my furnace for refining, it is because I want to show everyone the way I refine armaments and have no intention of keeping it to myself. Moreover, I've already slowed down the variations of my hand gestures, so are you telling me that you have not seen it clearly? Ah! What? Am I hearing things wrongly? How can there be such a thing? That's weird. Earlier I had thought it was very strange, What kind of route is she taking when she's opening the lid to refine profound armaments? It would result in an obvious drop in the temperature, lowering the overall success rate. I had thought it was some exclusive method, so she only wanted to show us the actual situation that was happening in the furnace. But this isn't logical at all, is it? Earlier her speed was so fast. Could she have even slowed down? Then if she resumes her normal speed, what kind of speed will that be? Could she be exaggerating? Exaggerating? Is there a need for her to exaggerate? No matter what, her method of refining armaments is shocking. Bursts of shocking peals could be heard from the armament master's seating area as everyone could not believe their ears. Huang Yueli's previous performance had exceeded everyone's imagination, and in the end, she actually claimed that for the sake of demonstrating clearly, she had already slowed down her pace. Furthermore, Lin Yang had made such a disgraceful request for her to redemonstrate her method once again, and she wasn't angry at all. Lin Yang could tell that she was friendly and spoke without any qualms. Master Bai, have you really slowed down your pace earlier? But from how I see it, the speed of your hands is still very fast. We weren't able to see clearly what you did when you were refining, nor how you were able to not make any mistake at all while displaying it out one by one. Huang Yueli replied, since you have not seen clearly, how about this? I shall redemonstrate again the process on how I draw out the impurities, and this time, I will slow down my pace even more. Saying this, she seemed to recall something as she turned back and took a look before correcting herself. Whoops, no, I totally forgot. We are now at the Armament Master Certification Assessment, not the Armament Master's Interaction Meet. If we were to discuss these now, it would seriously affect the progress of the certification assessment. There are still so many armament apprentices waiting for the practical assessment. Forget about it, let's wait for another day and end here first to stop wasting everyone's time. Saying that, she started to keep her armament furnace. The minute those armament masters heard that she was going to redemonstrate once again and even slow down her pace, they were filled with anticipation as they opened their eyes wide, prepared to take a careful look this time round. In the end, they had just gotten excited when Huang Yueli actually said to change to another day. The armament masters were extremely disappointed. Under Huang Yueli's virtuosic performance, everyone's attention were all gathered on her method of refining profound armaments. You can also listen on. Everyone had long forgotten the reason why they were here today. If it wasn't for Huang Yueli's reminder, no one would have recalled why they were here for, or that today was the day of the Armament Master Certification Assessment. This originally was one of the more important activities for the Armament Guild, otherwise both the president and vice president would not attend at the same time. But because of Huang Yueli's interference, everyone had totally forgotten about what they were supposed to do. Although now the Armament Masters came to realize this, but none of them cared about the Armament Master's assessment. What's the point in looking at these immature and inexperienced armament apprentices? Was it even comparable to Huang Yueli displaying her exclusive method? Such a rare opportunity, when would be the next time they were able to experience it? The certification assessment was a yearly affair, so surely there was nothing wrong with deferring it slightly. It wasn't just one or two who had this sort of thinking. With Lin Dan as a head start, everyone could tell that Huang Yueli was rather easygoing and started to make their earnest requests. Master Bai, please ignore that certification assessment. Based on your ability, surely you don't need to worry that you will not be able to obtain the Armament Master's badge. Isn't that so? We should directly credit Master Bai with a 4th tier, no, 5th tier badge. Master Bai, please do us some good and redemonstrate your method again. That doesn't need too much time anyway. As for the certification assessment, we can talk about that later on. If not, we can always delay till tomorrow to continue with the assessment. That's right, I support that with both my hands and feet raised up. Tomorrow we can continue with the assessment, no big deal about it. Huang Yueli looked like she was put in a difficult position. Everyone please don't be so anxious. It's not like I'd renege on it. Next time I'll definitely find an opportunity to demonstrate for everyone, but today is indeed very important. The Armament Guild's president and our academy's principal are all present, so I cannot just make the decision on my own. Miss Bai, please don't have so much misgivings. Since everyone would like to see the method of your demonstration, then please do so once again. In fact, even I was not able to see your method clearly earlier, as your speed is really exceptionally extraordinary. I would also like to see it once again." President, who was laughing out loud as he got down from the VIP seating area and came all the way to Huang Yueli. Huang Yueli actually had some impression of President Hu. He had assumed responsibility as president of the Armament Guild's branch in Sky Cloud City for 20 over years, and Huang Yueli had once met him in her previous life. Her impression of him wasn't too bad at all. Although this old man's technique was not worth mentioning as compared to Huang Yueli, but his character was magnanimous and was never jealous of those who were better than him, and he also protected the capable ones, and under his care, he had nurtured several young and talented armament masters, sending them to soaring heavens continent's Armament Guild headquarters. He was one of the ministers who had contributed outstanding service to the Armament Guild. On seeing that he came over personally, Huang Yueli smiled as she replied, "Since President Hu has agreed, then I shall not reject any further." President Hu had seen her from afar at the VIP seating and already felt that she was exceptionally beautiful and had outstanding etiquette. Although her features looked young and inexperienced, but she was already displaying a graceful demeanor. Now that he observed her from up close, he felt more so that she had an indescribable presence. Just standing there alone made her shone, as all the others had all turned dull in the background. President Hu fiddled with his heart as he gave a knowing smile. As though he suddenly understood something, like why that aloof and remote, yet exceptionally outstanding and talented young sect Master Li of Celestial Light Sect would pamper this young lady with so much love, even abandoning the sect master's daughter, insisting on getting engaged with her. You can also listen on. With this outstanding lady in front of him, no matter how many rich young misses with good backgrounds appeared, they probably had all turned into commonplace women. Furthermore, she had such shocking talent in armament refining, and was said to have equally outstanding talent in cultivation. President Hu set his mind to cajole Huang Yueli because this kind of talent wasn't simply found anywhere. He smiled as he said, "Miss Bai, please be assured that I am not one who uses my authority to oppress others. If you really don't want to reveal your exclusive method and not willing to demonstrate here, then you can absolutely reject this. After all, the exchange of the art of armament refining must come from a willing party." Huang Yueli smiled slightly as she said, "President Hu, don't worry. I wasn't prepared to hide my skills, and since everyone had so much interest, it is also my honor, so might as well allow me to impart my method to everyone." What she said wasn't a lie. In actual fact, before she even started to demonstrate publicly, she had already made preparations that her skills would be secretly learnt by some, so she intentionally opened the furnace lid and slowed down her pace with the intention of demonstrating once clearly. In this way, not only could it cajole the armament masters present, it would also win her some reputation in the Armament Guild. Anyway, no matter if it was the skill of removing the impurities in the Scarlet Thunder Steel or the elven hand gestures of fusing the metal attributes, this was merely a commonly used low-leveled skill often used by first or second-tier armament masters. To her, it was just an extremely low-end technique only, and there wasn't any need to hide this from everyone. Giving up a small price like this could win the entire Sky Cloud City's Armament Guild's favor was a worthwhile deal. In future she would definitely have more needs which required the aid of the Armament Guild. In President Hu's ears, this news made him feel both delighted and excited, as the evaluation he gave towards Huang Yueli had increased by a huge notch. Many armament masters valued their own methods of refining armaments, as everyone valued the broom as their own. Even among masters, sometimes they might not even give up everything they know to their disciples. After all, everyone depended on their own skill for a living. The sort of matter whereby the master had learnt the skill, the disciple would probably had starved to death, happened frequently. But now, a talented armament master like Huang Yueli actually appeared. Not only was her talent shocking and her age young, she was even so generous and selfless. This character was simply nothing to pick on. How in heavens could there be such a perfect young girl? He had really picked up a treasure this round. President Hu was so happy that he could not stop smiling ear to ear. Good, then we'll have to trouble Miss Bai. Rest assured that I won't let you waste your effort. According to the Armament Guild's regulations, those who leave behind an exclusive profound armament method or prescription will be able to obtain 10,000 of contribution points as a reward. I have recorded this down under your name. WA, 10,000 contribution point. I'm a second-tier armament master now and have been around in the guild for many years but have not been able to gain 10,000 contribution points yet. Isn't that so? Bai Ruoli have not even gotten the armament master's badge and had already gained so much contribution point. I feel that it's too little. Master Bai is so selfless and so generous, so giving 20,000 contribution points is just about right. The armament masters were exclaiming out one by one, but no one raised any objections. Even though some were mentally imbalanced but did not dare to voice out. Everyone else were waiting for Huang Yueli to redemonstrate, so if they were to voice their objections, wouldn't that cause public outrage? President who sent people to get another large piece of Scarlet Thunder steel from the storage and passed it over to Huang Yueli. Huang Yueli's fingers moved and lit up her deviant flame once again. You can also listen on. Whoever knew that her finger had just moved slightly when she heard a bustle of movement. Those armament masters seated in the far end had all stood up and ran over, surrounding the stage. At this moment, they had all forgotten their valuable identity which they were so proud of, only thinking of watching closely, not omitting a single step. What the, who stepped on me earlier? Don't you understand the meaning of first come first serve? How dare you play low? Give way, why is your head so big? My vision have all been blocked by you. Those in the first row, squat down, I say. Don't affect others from viewing Master Bai's demonstration. The crowd were all fighting to get the position for the best view and a few of them almost started to quarrel. Later on, under the guidance of Master Hu, they all managed to find a position as all of them kept their eyes peeled and affixed on Huang Yueli in anticipation to see her moves. Huang Yueli suddenly coughed slightly as she said, "This time, I will slow down my pace to the minimum, and if you still can't see clearly, I can't do anything about it. Because if I slow down any further, the materials in the armament furnace would have overstayed its duration and the quality would have a serious impact. So in future, if you really want to learn this 3 steps method of removing impurities, then the speed of your hand gestures would have to be equally this fast." Saying that, the amethyst thunder flame flew out from her fingertips. Huang Yueli kept to the routine of lighting up the deviant flame, and after the furnace was heated up, she put in the scarlet thunder steel into the furnace. This round, her speed had decreased once again, and moreover, her explanation was much more detailed. Will everyone look carefully now? When you are placing the scarlet thunder steel, you must take note of the furnace's temperature. As I used a deviant flame to heat up the furnace, so even if I opened the lid, it would still maintain an amount of temperature, but if you're refining it on your own and if you are using an ordinary flame, then you must remember to never open the lid. As Huang Yueli was explaining, she proficiently displayed her hand gestures. Even though she had intentionally slowed down, but there were not many who could keep up with her pace. There were even some who took out their note scrolls and writing brushes as they speedily recorded down the information. Li Moying was seated in the VIP seat and his gaze was totally affixed onto Huang Yueli. Her slender fingers waved around in mid-air, perfecting drawing out graceful angles as though she was dancing. Li Moying used his hand to prop up his chin as his lips curled upwards and thought in his heart that his little fox was simply too beautiful. Especially when she was revealing her overbearing look now, there was an indescribable charm which made people fell for her uncontrollably. Seeing so many armament masters crowding around her holding her as though she was a star, Li Moying felt honored, but at the same time, he felt that it was something natural. He always knew that his little fox was incredible. No one was comparable to her, whereas he had absolute confidence in her always. Among the armament masters who crowded around, President who was seated nearest to Huang Yueli. His insight exceeded others by several times, and during Huang Yueli's previous demonstration, he had already understood most of the hand gestures and developed his own understanding towards this set of method. So this time his concentration wasn't on the method of armament refining. More than that, it was to observe Huang Yueli. The more President who observed, the more he felt that this elegant and pure young lass was simply unfathomable. Under the situation where there were so many armament masters looking at her, she wasn't affected one bit. You can also listen on. Most armament masters all like to hide alone in the armament refining room. By doing that, They would not reveal the exclusive method which they used to refine armaments. Another reason was because the process of refining was easily disturbed by outsiders, as it only needs a little movement to distract the armament master's attention, thereby causing the armament refining to fail. But now, Huang Yueli was surrounded by many armament masters while refining the profound armament, and furthermore, each pair of eyes were fixated on her every single move. Not forgetting there were so many other ordinary students around who opened their eyes wide, hoping to catch a glimpse of what made her so extraordinary. It was thinkable how tremendous the pressure was standing on Huang Yueli's position, who was now the focus of attention. Even President Hu himself didn't dare to guarantee that under the same circumstances, he would be able to maintain his usual steady and collected self. But Huang Yueli just stood there, totally calm from the start. Every single hand gesture she made was precise, and her speed wasn't too fast nor too slow. It allowed everyone to see it clearly, but yet not affecting the entire refining process. Not only that, during her demonstration, she multitasked and patiently explained each step without a single bit of frenetic. Some of the armament masters who crowded around couldn't hold themselves back and raised some questions, and yet she was able to answer it one by one. Moreover, no matter what questions they raised, she had never been stuck in a scenario whereby she answered incorrectly or was stumped by any question. Thinking about this again, many low-tiered armament masters, when they were refining armament, if there were any slight noises nearby, it would lead to an immediate explosion. Just comparing this alone meant that not only did Huang Yueli had exceptional skills, it also showed that her psychological state of heart was also top-rated. Just how old was this young lass to be able to hold such a fort? How would President Hu ever know that this situation, to Huang Yueli, was really chicken feet only? In her previous life, she was often invited by Soaring Heavens Continent's Armament Guild headquarters to conduct lectures for the other armament masters. At that time, the audience she dealt with were mostly 7th or 8th tiered armament grandmasters. In front of them, she was able to remain calm and composed while conducting her lecture, so towards those armament masters who were 3rd tier and below was no pressure to her at all. Not long after, Huang Yueli had once again completed the process of drawing out the impurities. Alright, now the impurities in the Scarlet Thunder Steel have all been completely drawn out, so this part of demonstration is not completed. Master Tang, don't forget to add in my marks for me. She was grinning as she said that. Tang Jinhua had already gone into a daze and didn't expect Huang Yueli to suddenly talk to him, as he suddenly went into a blank. Huh? Add marks? What marks? It's my theory assessment paper. Now I've already proven that my own answer is correct, right? Ah, right, the theory paper. Tang Jinhua wiped the sweat off his forehead as he finally recalled what happened and hurriedly cried out, Master Bai, your standard doesn't need us to say anything more. Earlier the few of us had shallow knowledge and experience and had made a wrong judgment, so please don't take it to heart. He finally could tell that Huang Yueli was still so young but yet had outstanding armament refining methods. Just from looking her calm and leisure way while refining armaments, don't say just 1st tier armament master, she probably had the standard of 2nd or even 3rd tier standard. And the master who taught her the skills of armament refining was definitely an armament grandmaster who was much stronger than President Hu and probably was someone of status from Soaring Heavens Continent. Huang Yueli's background was so strong and he couldn't afford to offend her. Actually, Tang Jinhua self-professed that his attitude towards Huang Yueli wasn't that bad at all. You can also listen on. But previously, when Huang Yueli was at the profound weapon chambers to choose her profound armaments, Tang Jinhua had saw the outstanding innate talent in refining armaments in her and had suggested to take her in as his disciple. Huang Yueli was not willing and he repeatedly advised her, wanting to be her master. Recalling that now simply made Tang Jinhua ashamed and unable to show his face. Just based on Huang Yueli's current expert skills that she had showed, did she even need him to teach her? What could he teach her? No wonder Huang Yueli had refused to accept him as her master previously. She already had an incomparably strong master, whereas he was just a 4th tier armament master, totally not on the same level. Just thinking about that was enough to make Tang Jinhua felt that he had totally lost face. He was also terrified that Huang Yueli would be laughing at him behind his back, that he had overestimated himself. But his worries were unnecessary. Huang Yueli didn't think too much and just laughed instead. Master Tang, you're too modest. I have yet to even obtain a first-tier armament master's badge, so how could I be called a master? Since the misunderstanding had been cleared up, just make up for my points will do. Saying that, Huang Yueli adjusted the flame a little higher and said, following this, let's move on to the next question. Wait a minute, Master Bai, can you please redemonstrate once more? Right, I haven't been able to copy everything down earlier and was just focused on watching your demonstration. Your hand gestures are simply too accurate. Just how much time did you spend on mastering it? I didn't manage to see the third last hand gesture clearly. The minute they heard that she was going to jump to the next question, the armament masters below the stage started bellowing, as though not resigned to fate that this demonstration had just ended like that. Seeing Huang Yueli refine armaments was simply a kind of enjoyment. When others refined profound armaments, they sweated profusely and looked battered and exhausted. But she seemed to be painting, sketching in light shades unhurriedly, causing those present to go into a daze, which also made them lose focus on those important parts. When President Hu saw the current situation, he coughed lightly. All right, she had already demonstrated twice. How many more times are you all expecting? Surely you cannot expect her to demonstrate 8 or 10 times, right? It's obviously your own fault for not paying attention. All right, we shall stop this here right now. Noticing that some of them were still resigned, Huang Yueli laughed as she said, the next demonstration is something that you have never seen before. That is the 11 types of hand gestures for fusion of metals. Following this, I will also add in the white moon iron into the armament furnace and simultaneously complete both drawing out the impurities and fusion process, so everyone please look carefully. If you didn't see it clearly the first time, I will not redemonstrate a second time. So I hope when everyone is watching, please remain completely silent. This was something which was of interest to the armament masters too. Hearing that, the armament masters stopped protesting and flew around Huang Yueli's side as they crowded around her, every single one of them showing their nimbleness. What kind of joke was that? Earlier they already didn't see clearly, so if they were not able to see clearly once again, then they would have made a huge loss. Huang Yueli's right hand wove and threw a large piece of white moon iron into the armament furnace. Following that, the furnace chamber kept sprouting white smoke and her gestures changed, starting to demonstrate. Armament masters were all concentrated as complete silence filled the entire place. President Hu saw this and couldn't help but sigh with emotion within his heart. All of these armament masters were usually proud and arrogant, and sometimes even his words weren't all that useful. In the end, just one sentence from Huang Yueli made everyone shut their mouths right up, not even daring to breathe loudly. You can also listen on. This probably was the Strong's exclusive power to rally supporters. After Huang Yueli had demonstrated all the 11 hand gestures, she didn't forget to remind them. After everyone goes back, you can try to familiarize yourself through practice. But I must remind you all that these 4 new types of fusion hand gestures will require the minimum intensity of a 6th-tier armament master's mental power before you can use it. Otherwise it might result in dire consequences. Light consequence would result in the explosion of the armament furnace, and if the armament master's tier is too low, it might result in backlash causing internal injury. When she said this, many armament masters' faces revealed a look of disapproval. Because the words that Huang Yueli had said was simply too outrageous. She herself was only 14 years old, and hadn't she just used these few hand gestures? They hadn't seen her feeling uncomfortable or any inadaptability. She probably exaggerated just a little too much. No one believed that Huang Yueli had the mental power of a 6th-tier armament master. When Huang Yueli saw their disapproving looks, she didn't make any further explanations. She had already reminded them to her extreme benevolence and utmost duty, so if anyone didn't believe her words and insisted on stepping up the path to doom, then she couldn't stop them at all. She kept her amethyst thunder flame, patted the dust off her hands and turned to look at President Hu. President Hu, I've already demonstrated these 2 questions, and for the next few questions, if you have any objections, do you still need me to demonstrate? President Hu hurriedly replied, none at all. Miss Bai, your foresight is indeed extraordinary, and I admit that we cannot match up, so this theory test will pass you with full marks. Huang Yueli blinked, Is that all right? I had skipped out on several steps in my last question. I should only get as 95 points. How would that do? 100 points, it must be 100 points. Master Bai has such high standard in armament refining, she should directly pass the certification assessment. That's right, full marks is well awarded and all of us pass this unanimously. These arrogant armament masters had completely become Huang Yueli's fanboys, and this was the first time the Armament Guild's inner department had agreed unanimously on the same thing. Actually, there were several few people who wanted Huang Yueli to continue demonstrating some other armament refining skills, but President Hu thought that the day was no longer young, so he stood out to stop this. All right, the interaction of armament refining skills can wait till some time later. Today is the day of Armament Master's certification, and let's not delay the actual thing any further. Now, will all those apprentices who had passed the first round of assessment please get up on stage, as we will immediately proceed with the second round of practical assessment. Will Master Tang please continue to preside over the assessment and announce the method of the assessment? President Hu returned to the VIP seating area and gave up the space to Master Tang. Huang Yueli kept her armament furnace and stood on one side. The other armament masters realized that she really wasn't planning on continuing with the demonstration, and each and every one of them returned dejectedly back to their own seats. But their attention was still fixed on Huang Yueli. Because in the next round of practical assessment, Huang Yueli was still going to continue to take part in it. During the assessment, she would refine a complete piece of profound armament on the spot. Everyone had a feeling that this should be something worth seeing. The students who had passed the theory assessment all proceeded up on stage and lined up into one straight line according to the marks which they had attained. Huang Yueli, of course, stood at the front of the line. Following right behind her was a pale-faced Li Shuer. Li Shuer was originally standing beside Tang Jinhua waiting to see Huang Yueli being chased out of the main door of the profound weapon chambers. In the end, the scenario which she had imagined did not happen at all. You can also listen on. Not only had Huang Yueli not been embarrassed, she really used only 3 steps to remove all the impurities from the Scarlet Thunder Steel, and her speed was much faster than any ordinary armament master's by several times. For a moment there, Li Shuer had thought that her brain wasn't functioning too well and had developed hallucination. How could that wretched lass possibly refine armaments? How could such a ridiculous thing happen? She had never once heard that Huang Yueli had formally become an apprentice to a master to learn armament refining skills. Moreover, not only was she able to refine armaments, those with eyes could tell that Huang Yueli's armament refining standard had clearly surpassed ordinary first and second tier armament master. Just as Li Shuer was in a daze, a shocking matter occurred. Those armament masters who usually held their noses up high in the air actually surrounded the stage just to see Huang Yueli's demonstrations. Everyone's overly agitated and overly imperative, while Li Shuer was still in a daze, so she was pushed to one side by those people and fell heavily onto the ground, even twisting her ankle. Li Shuer was in so much pain that her face contorted, but at this moment, no one noticed her at all. Even Tang Jinhua, who treated her the best, usually had not given her one lu, or even realized that his own disciple was missing. All he thought of was to learn those new skills from Huang Yueli's demonstrations. Li Shuer was both in pain and infuriated that she almost spat out a mouthful of blood. This originally was her most glamorous and conspicuous day, and everyone should be pamper her Li Shuer, but now, all her glamour had been snatched by Huang Yueli. Whereas she became an invisible person whom no one gave a damn about. What made her filled with both hatred and envy was that Huang Yueli actually had such a strong standard of armament refining. Not only had she subdued those low-leveled armament masters, even her own master Tang Jinhua treated Huang Yueli with respect and courtesy, even greeting her as Master Bai. That wretched lass was actually a master? What master? She obviously wasn't even a first-tier armament master. However, no matter how jealous Li Shuer was, it did not affect Huang Yueli one bit. Everyone surrounded her, and even President Hu came over personally to encourage her. These scenes played on and on in front of Li Shuer, and she clenched her fists hard, her nails pressing into her palms, but yet she could not suppress the jealousy and hatred within her heart. If it wasn't for the fact that Li Shuer had still remembered that today was the Armament Master's certification assessment, She probably could not take this pressure any further and would have left the profound weapon chambers in fury. With great difficulty after a long time, Huang Yueli's demonstration had finally all came to an end. Tang Jinhua finally announced the start of the Armament Master Certification Assessment. Li Shuer used all her might to calm herself down, to remain stable. The Armament Master Certification was only held once a year, and if she had ran off because of the anger that Huang Yueli caused or if she didn't manage herself well, then it would be her loss. So she had to endure. But the minute she walked to the contenders' seating area and saw Huang Yueli seated on the seat above her, jealousy once again filled her heart as it started to soar. By Ruoli, you've really hidden yourself well. How come I don't know about you learning armament refining at all? Usually you acted so well was just to trick me intentionally. She is simply a scheming wretched lass. Huang Yueli heard what she said and turned around, throwing her an indifferent glance. Li Shuer, your jealous look really look terrible. Whether I have hidden myself well or not, it seems to have nothing to do with you at all, so just be concerned about yourself. You can also listen on. Li Shuer sneered, I'm worried. What do I have to worry about? I've been learning armament refining for the past 5 to 6 years, and the success rate of refining a first-tier profound armament is already at 90% and above. Passing the Armament Master Certification is a definite thing. Unlike you, using dishonest practices to gain victory. Huang Yueli's lips curled upwards slightly. Dishonest practices? Unfortunately, even your master is very interested in my dishonest practice. Her understated tone and expression completely angered Li Shuer. Li Shuer couldn't accept how she couldn't matched up to Huang Yueli in every aspect and even being beaten up several times by her. But using her status as an armament master, she felt that she was on higher grounds when facing Huang Yueli. After all, she would become a valuable and honorable armament master in future, whereas Huang Yueli was merely a practitioner with a higher cultivation. But now, Huang Yueli actually knew how to refine armament. Li Shuer gritted her teeth. You, don't be too complacent. You were able to display so many armament refining skills earlier just because you have a deviant flame in your possession and a high-leveled armament furnace. To be fair for all students, in this next round of assessment, all examinees would need to use the furnaces given out by the Armament Guild to use for refining and can only use the ordinary flames, so you will have no way of cheating. By then, if Master Bai, who is highly thought of by others, is not able to pass the practical assessment, then you will become a laughingstock. Huang Yueli couldn't help but laugh out. Can you even believe yourself when you hear your own words? I am unable to pass the practical assessment. Li Shuer indeed was not able to believe in her own words as well, so saying these were just to build up some courage for herself. Why would I not believe in it? Huang Yueli immodestly broke through her weak psychological defense. I say, Li Shuer, you'd better start making preparations. Today I will definitely pass through the Armament Master Certification successfully. Do you still remember what you said before the start of the assessment? If I am able to become a first-tier armament master, you will run around naked in Sky Cloud City. Do you still remember that? Li Shuer turned white as sheet instantly. You. What do you mean? Huang Yueli laughed. I don't mean anything else. I'm only reminding you about the bet that we had made earlier. If I were to lose, I will promise you one request, isn't it? Don't worry, if I really am not able to pass the certification assessment, I will definitely keep my promise and be at your beck and call. How about you? How about you? A simple question, in Li Shuer's ears felt like a thunderstorm. Huang Yueli had already expressed that she would definitely keep her end of the bet, so how could she Li Shuer renege on hers? Other people had already shown her stance, but if she were to renege on hers and if news of this spread out, what would become of her reputation? But now, the situation clearly showed that Huang Yueli had a 99% chance of passing the Armament Master Certification. If she were to promise to keep her end of the bet, wouldn't that represent that she would need to run around naked on the streets later? This was something more embarrassing than reneging on a debt. With this dark history of running around naked, her hopes of marrying into Sky Cloud City's large family to become the young mistress were completely dashed. Li Shuer's expression turned green as her teeth couldn't stop chattering, but yet she was not able to say a single word. Huang Yueli laughed lightly. Why are you not replying? Senior Sister Li, surely you are not. Afraid, right? Regretting it now? Why don't you just kneel down here right now and apologize to me? Maybe I might be lenient and give up the bet with you. But of course, that is just a maybe. You can also listen on. Sweat kept dripping down from Li Shue's forehead as she couldn't stop the internal fighting within her head. Huang Yueli didn't urge her as though she was waiting for Li Shue's final answer. Li Shue's thoughts quickly flew past. Suddenly she seemed to have thought of something as her eyes lit up, and following that, a sinister smile sprouted from the corners of her lips. Who says I'm afraid, and who said I'm starting to regret? Since I've already agreed on the bet, then I will stand by my decision if I were to lose. I'll run around naked if I lose. What's so great about that? Moreover, are you sure you will definitely win? This round of assessment hasn't started yet and you already declared that you will win. Aren't you being too self-approbated? Li Shuer raised her chin arrogantly, displaying a look as though her character had been insulted, raising the volume of her voice. Originally they two of them had been talking softly in one corner, and now that Li Shuer argued noisily and loudly, quite a number of people nearby heard what they talked about. What's going on? Li Shuer and Bai Ruoli are quarreling? What's so strange about that? Aren't they always at loggerheads with each other? Bai Ruoli even stole the limelight from Li Shuer, so it would be a wonder if both of them could coexist peacefully. But what can Li Shuer do about it? Bai Ruoli's armament refining talent is simply terrifying. She will definitely become an armament grandmaster in future. No matter what, Li Shuer cannot be compared to her, right? That's right. How on heavens could such an abnormal person like Bai Ruoli even exist? Not only does she have outstanding talent in cultivation, she even knows how to refine armaments and even holds skills which even the Armament Guild do not know about. That's right, she also has senior brother Li, a heaven-defying and handsome fiancé. Heavens, if I were Li Shuer, I might as well throw myself against the wall and die. Where would I even find the face to argue with her? Everyone were discussing one after another, and the topic totally could not leave Huang Yueli at all. Moreover, everyone were only envious rather than jealous. Because jealousy would only occur when both parties' potential was around the same range. Now that Huang Yueli had totally crushed every student in all aspects, such a person who was set up on high ground already made everyone lost their courage to even feel jealous. But didn't they just mention something about a bet? Right, I heard that too. Did the two of them just made a bet? Who knows what they bet on? The crowd started to ask around, and very quickly, the contents of the bet during the registration had spread around the entire profound weapon chamber. Li Shuer must be mad. She actually said she will keep her side of the bet. Junior sister Bai will definitely be able to pass the armament master certification, so isn't she going to run around naked? This time round, I really see Li Shuer in new light. Under such a situation, she is still able to keep her promise, so she is really a young lady with integrity and responsibility. What? I feel that Li Shuer must know about some inside story and probably has come confidence, so she insisted on keeping her side of her bet. Not only were the crowd feeling weird, even Huang Yueli also felt exceptionally surprised as she raised her eyebrows in shock. Li Shuer, are you sure? Of course I'm sure. Now, don't tell me you're afraid. Li Shuer sneered. Huang Yueli's forehead creased. Wasn't Li Shuer still showing a terrified expression, obviously afraid of having to run around naked? But in just a short time, she actually changed her mind. Looking at her expression, it didn't seem like she was resigned to fate, but rather she was up to something no good. Li Shuer, what on earth was she thinking about? You can also listen on. Before Huang Yueli could think things through, Tang Jinhua was already announcing the official start of the second round of assessment. Before the both of them could not even speak another sentence, and they each moved to their own respective positions and started the assessment. The second round was a practical assessment, so the difficulty was much higher than the first round of theory assessment. The assessment was split into two sections. The first section was a fixed topic, and all they needed to do was to follow the Armament Guild's request to refine the designated first-tier profound armament. This year's examination question was to refine a set of first-tier wrist guards. Besides amplifying the intensity of the defensive power, their speed of completion was also amplified. The second section was a free topic as it had always been every other year. All the examinees could choose to refine a profound armament which they specialized at, but the materials they used must be within the Armament Guild's supplied materials. For the profound armament which they refine, the greater the power and the higher its efficiency, the higher the marks would be. For the ordinary armament apprentices, this year's selected topic had some difficulty to it. The requirement was a dual-attributed profound armament, and refining it was much more difficult than coming out with a single-attribute armament, so there were many examinees who revealed a difficult expression as they couldn't help but sigh in despair. But to Li Shuer, this question was simply too simple, not to mention it wasn't even worth mentioning in Huang Yueli's eyes. So while the others were still hesitating, the both of them had already started putting their hands to it. The both of them lit up the flame at the same time and heated up the armament furnace. Huang Yueli's movements were elegant and soothing as her slender fingers drew across the sky as though moving clouds and flowing water, causing gasps of surprises from below the stage. Li Shuer had a bitter taste when she heard that. Although she tried very hard to remind herself that this round of assessment was very important and she must gather all her concentration and not be distracted, but her gaze could not be controlled as it kept turning towards Huang Yueli, stealing a peek at her time and again. Huang Yueli's movements were swift, and it was merely a quarter of an hour when she had already removed all the impurities in all of the materials and had successfully fused it together. She was already adjusting the intensity of the flames and preparing to enter the last stage of formation. Wow, did you see that? How fast Bai Ruoli's speed was. That pair of hands movements. Simply as though it was lightning, I could only see the fragments of her movements. No wonder she kept saying earlier that she had already reduced her speed to the slowest, so it's really true. Her normal speed is actually so terrifying, too fast, it's just too fast. Just a quarter of an hour and she's about to refine. Heavens! It's not about to, she has already finished refining. Her wrist guards have already taken shape. In between the gasping sounds, Huang Yueli opened the armament furnace's lid and took out a pair of wrist guards from within. This pair of wrist guards emitted a faint golden glow and was dainty and delicate. Decorated on the side were white-colored flower patterns, and from the exterior, it was suitable for young ladies. So fast, how could she be so fast? Even if it was me, to refine a piece of first-tier profound armament, although it's not too taxing, I will need at least 1 hour. Vice President Gong, who was seated on the VIP seating, was astonished by this sight as he started to speak to President Hu, who was seated next to him. President Hu's face was filled with fascination as well. Not only is her speed the fastest, this set of wrist guards are also done beautifully, so it shows that she still had remaining energy left after refining. To her, a first-tier profound armament like this is just too simple. Normal armament masters who were more practical would place more emphasis on the practicability of the profound armament and would not bother too much about the exterior. You can also listen on. It took a lot of effort to do up a profound armament beautifully, and moreover, it didn't have much use in raising the performance. It was a trick used mostly by auction houses to cheat amateurs into coming out with a higher pricing, so they specially got armament masters to put in some effort into decorating the exterior. But they could tell from Huang Yueli's earlier demonstration that she apparently was not one who just placed emphasis on the exterior and not on the practicability. It could only be said that this piece of profound armament didn't take too much of her effort, so since she had nothing to do, she might as well have made it prettier. Huang Yueli passed the wrist guards over to Tang Jinhua, and following that, she immediately started refining the next profound armament. The free topic had much more leeway to express her ideas, and Huang Yueli was preparing to refine an entire set of profound artifact with a total of 3 pieces, which includes earrings, a necklace, and a ring. This set of profound artifact was mainly used to increase the speed of regeneration of profound energy and was extremely practical during a battle. Her speed was very fast, and it took just another quarter of an hour before the materials in the armament furnace had all been fused successfully as she proceeded into the formation stage again. Li Shuer was feeling extremely anxious when she saw this. How could this wretched lass possibly be so fast? Even a 4th-tier armament master like her master wasn't that fast. Could it be that she had skills which were even better than 4th-tiered armament masters? How was that possible? If she was able to refine the free topic profound armament successfully, Then she would immediately pass the Armament Master Certification assessment. Li Shuer was so anxious that her forehead was filled with sweat because didn't that meant that she had to run around naked? A future armament master like her couldn't possibly do such a thing at all. She wiped the sweat off her forehead as she clenched her teeth. Right now, there wasn't any other choice and she could only do that. This was all that wretched lass's own doing. Li Shuer's right hand waved and struck out a hand gesture. But not knowing if her range of movement was a little too huge or if she was too careless, when she waved her hand, it coincidentally stuck the armament furnace and moreover, T was dealt with a heavy strike. Ayo, so painful. Li Shuer hugged her right hand as she cried out loud. Her armament furnace suddenly fell sideways towards the right side and it happened to fell right onto Huang Yueli's table leg as the materials which were already fused fell right out of the armament furnace and quite a number of it happened to slashed onto the walls of Huang Yueli's armament furnace. Huang Yueli's movements halted for a moment as she frowned and looked at her. Li Shuer gave an apologetic look and hurriedly cried out, "Oh, I'm sorry, so sorry. I'm really too careless. I actually toppled the armament furnace, I'm just too anxious. Junior Sister Bai, were you slashed by accident? Oh no, your table's so dirty and it's all my fault. I'm really so sorry for that, let me help you clean it up." As Li Shuer said that, she took a piece of cloth and started cleaning. Huang Yueli frowned, "No need, I accept your apology so you don't need to clean the table. Quickly return to refine your profound armament. How will that do? I made a mistake so I must make up for it. I'm not those kind who will not admit my own wrongdoing. Junior Sister Bai, don't worry, I'll definitely clean it all up properly. Luckily it's only my own armament furnace which was spilled and hadn't knocked into yours, otherwise I really cannot forgive myself." Li Shuer was gabbling non-stop and in the midst of her body movements, she blocked Huang Yueli's sight and at the same time, took out a small black, shining stone from her realm ring. While Huang Yueli was not paying attention, she threw it into her armament furnace. You can also listen on. This piece of black stone was only the size of a fingernail and looked totally unremarkable, so Li Shuer only needed to lift up a little of Huang Yueli's armament furnace's lid and she would be able to stuff it in. The black-colored stone dropped into the materials which Huang Yueli had already smelted and with a plop, it fused together with the other materials without even giving out a bubble. Li Shuer saw everything with the corner of her eye and her heart danced wildly with joy, almost unable to hide the sneer from the corner of her lips. Wretched lass, who asked you to be arrogant and wild? Now that she had fallen into her trap, no matter how high her armament refining skills were, she would not be able to hope to attain the armament master's badge. On seeing that her scheme had worked, she didn't stay any longer in case it arose other people's suspicions. She used the cleaning cloth and wiped swiftly around all the surroundings and said, "All done, it's all clean now. Junior Sister Bai, I'm really sorry. Quickly continue with your refining." Saying that she returned to her own position and thought that no one had noticed what she did. When armament apprentices were in the middle of the certification assessment, they would usually be overly anxious and toppling over their armament furnaces was a common sight. So Tang Jinhua didn't think too much of it as he thought it was merely an accident and hurriedly brought over a new set of armament furnace and materials so that Li Shuer could restart her refining. He didn't forget to remind Li Shuer, I know you're under tremendous pressure, but when you're refining profound armaments, the most important thing is to keep your mentality relaxed and remain composed. The more anxious you are, the easier it is to make a mistake. I believe in you and I know you will be able to pass the certification assessment, so work hard. Yes, Master, please be assured that this round there will be no problem at all. Li Shuer smiled as she said that. Tang Jinhua saw her calm and collected smile and couldn't help but be assured. Li Shuer lit up the fire once again and stole glances to check on Huang Yueli's situation. Seeing that Huang Yueli had once again readjusted the flame's intensity, preparing to continue with the forming stage, her heart pounded wildly. Huang Yueli's eyelids hung downwards, masking the chilly intent hidden in her eyes. Earlier she had seen Li Shuer throwing something into her armament furnace. She had been waiting for Li Shuer to leave before she lifted up the lid to take a look, and immediately she detected that something was amiss. Li Shuer had actually thrown a piece of mirage cloudy rock into her armament furnace. The Mirage Cloudy Rock was a type of 5th-tier material and the cost of it was considerably high. It had a special type of effect which could aid the profound armament in forming its shape and greatly increasing the success rate of the final profound armament by several notches. Don't think that it was an easy feat for Huang Yueli when she was refining armaments. In actual fact, right after the armament refining materials had been successfully fused together, the final forming stage was the easiest stage to fail. At least 90% and above of the armament masters were able to do well at removing impurities and fusing the materials, but when it came to molding it into shape, usually it was because of the depletion of profound energy or lack of control of the temperature which led to a complete failure. There were numerous times when the last step led to the explosion of the armament furnace. However, adding in the Mirage Cloudy Rock when the profound armament was about to be shaped would greatly increase the success rate, and it only required a certain amount of armament refining basics to be able to mold it into shape successfully. But adding in the Mirage Cloudy Rock while refining profound armaments had a huge side effect. As the temperature had not reached the required intensity and it was forced into taking shape, the effect and durability of the profound armament would decrease greatly and would not be able to give out the effect which it should have. If an ordinary third-tier profound armament were to be refined using the Mirage Cloudy Rock, although it was still a third-tier profound armament on the surface, in reality the effect could not even match up against a second-tier profound armament. You can also listen on. But now they were refining a first-tier profound armament, so it was imaginable that after adding in the Mirage Cloudy Rock, the final product would probably not be stronger than a weapon which ordinary people use. Huang Yueli immediately understood what Li Shuer was scheming. In order to prevent cheap quality counterfeits from wandering into the market and spoiling armament masters' reputation and ethos, the Mirage Cloudy Rock was a prohibited material which the Armament Guild had banned from using. Once the Armament Guild found any armament masters using the Mirage Cloudy Rock, then that armament master would immediately be stripped of his identity badge and moreover, that person would never be able to gain the Armament Master certification for his entire lifetime. For an armament master who had never been certified, no matter how outstanding his works were, it was extremely difficult to get the recognition of most people, and all the large auction houses under Soaring Heaven's Continent's Chamber of Commerce clearly rejected profound armaments which these tainted armament masters refined. Huang Yueli was just put into the limelight, and what if she was found using the Mirage Cloudy Rock during the Armament Master certification immediately? Then her reputation would drop from the peak into the bottoms of the valley. Such a drastic difference would definitely condemn her into damnation. Moreover, at such a public occasion with several thousand students as spectators, if Huang Yueli were to get involved in such a scandal, even if the Armament Guild had wanted to suppress this, they would definitely be able to settle it on the spot. Huang Yueli would absolutely be shut out completely. The worst of it all was that the Mirage Cloudy Rock was a material which easily melted under high temperature. As long as it was placed into materials which were about to take shape, it would completely melt in an instant. This scheme of Li Shuer's was simply too brilliant. If she were to meet ordinary armament masters, they probably wouldn't have discovered her little scheme and had no way of remedial, because it only required one breath's time and the Mirage Cloudy Rock would have fused together with the other materials, totally unable to split it up. But unfortunately, the person she met with was Huang Yueli. Huang Yueli swept a glance at Li Shuer and did not show any emotions on her face, as though she hadn't discovered anything at all. She readjusted the temperature of the fire and using her right hand to draw a circle, she struck out a hand gesture, starting the final molding step. Li Shuer didn't dare to look at her openly and could only pay attention to her own armament furnace while stealing glances at Huang Yueli's movements. Huang Yueli's movements were extremely swift as her fingers were flying, striking out hand gestures one after another, and not long after, the materials in the armament furnace gradually took shape. Whoa, this is first-tier upper-grade profound artifact. I think that's right. But, this is a necklace. No, earring. And a ring. Heavens, this is a set. An entire set of first-tier upper-grade profound artifact. What? An entire set. Junior Sister by actually refined 3 pieces of profound artifact. It was widely known that among the profound armaments, the easiest to refine was profound weapon followed by the profound armor and the highest difficulty was profound artifact. In order to make sure that they were able to pass the certification assessment successfully, most armament masters would refine the profound weapon which had the highest success rate. To refine profound artifact at this kind of scenario was never heard of in the past. All the armament masters were shocked beyond words. President Gong played with his beard as he said in utter shock, I'm not seeing things right. These 3 pieces of profound artifact are all refined at one go, so it should be a set, right? But a first-tier profound armament can also become a set. Aren't only 5th grade and above high-leveled profound armaments refined as a set? Furthermore, in the process of refining, various precious materials are usually required. This young lass used those common materials and managed to refine it. You can also listen on. President who had gained slightly more knowledge than him said, actually low-leveled profound armament set, although rare, but were still able to be refined by some. Saying this, he paused. President Gong's curiosity was aroused as he kept asking, really? Which Grandmaster in Soaring Heaven's continent had actually managed to research the method to refine a set of low-leveled profound armament? Quick, tell me, perhaps this Bai Ruoli is that master's disciple. President who heaved a sigh as he continued, this person exists as a goddess in every armament master's heart and a god of armament refining, forever unable to be surpassed. Unfortunately, she had passed away many years already. President whose words were put in an obscured way, but there was only one person who was as what he described. All the armament masters who heard his words immediately reflected the well-known name, Huang Yueli. You're talking about the 9th-tiered armament Grandmaster Master Huang. President Gong's eyes grew wide. Isn't that so? President who sighed with emotion. I'd been over to Soaring Heaven's continent more than a decade ago and had heard that Master Huang had researched a way to refine a set of low-leveled profound armament. So it was Master Huang's works, no wonder. But Master Huang had passed on for so many years now, so Bai Ruoli's armament refining skills obviously couldn't have been taught by her. Can she be a genius who is comparable to Master Huang? President who shook his head, this shouldn't be. Master Huang had previously conducted lectures in Soaring Heaven's continent, so I believe quite a number of high-leveled armament masters had learnt from her. It's not just a legend, the current Armament Guild headquarters president is her disciple, isn't it? Bai Ruoli's master should be some reputable master in Soaring Heaven's continent who taught her these. This was the most logical reasoning, and President Gong nodded in acknowledgement. The two of them were not too far away, and originally Li Moying was concentrated on watching his little fox's performance, but when he heard the 3 words Huang Yueli, he subconsciously turned around to look at them. Not knowing why, this name gave him a strange feeling. Of course, Soaring Heaven's continent's former #1 armament master Huang Yueli, this renowned peerless talent, it was definitely not his first time hearing her name. But this time what made him especially uncomfortable was similar to his brain being smashed by someone, feeling a strange swelling kind of pain. Some images seemed to flash by his eyes, but suddenly seemed like nothing at all. In his mind, confused and messy, amidst everyone's discussion and gasps of admiration, Huang Yueli had already completed both sections of the assessment. Tang Jinhua received a set of 3 profound artifacts from her hands and used his palm to hold it up. Such exquisite products was something that he had never heard of. To be able to see this personally with his own eyes, he hurriedly treated it as a treasure, protecting it, worried that just a little knock would damage it. Huang Yueli, on the other hand, didn't mind so much. Master Tang, don't be so anxious. It's just merely a first-tier profound armament and not worth anything much. Li Shuai humphed as she glanced sideways at Huang Yueli, sneering in her heart. She was after all only an armament apprentice and hadn't seen much of the world, so she had not realized that the profound armament set which Huang Yueli had refined was so rare and so precious. At this moment, Li Shuai only had one thought in mind, and that was Huang Yueli's profound armament had successfully formed its shape and taken out of the furnace. This meant that the scheme she came out with to deal with Huang Yueli had already succeeded. She will let this wretched lass remain complacent for a little while more. You can also listen on. After a little while, when the assessment ended and when the results were announced, she would spill the beans that this wretched lass was cheating by using the Mirage Cloudy Rock. By then, Her reputation would be completely swept away. Li Shuer was full of evil thoughts and wasn't paying much attention to her own armament furnace's condition. Suddenly a boom sound was heard as the flames below Li Shuer's armament furnace suddenly rose sharply. The flames engulfed the entire furnace. Oh no! The armament furnace is going to explode. Li Shuer's heart skilled as the expression on the color on her face changed. The materials in her furnace had all melted and was about to enter the final molding stage. If the furnace were to explode at this point of time, then wouldn't all her efforts be wasted? And what was worse was that this wasn't the first time she had failed during the assessment. Earlier, in order to scheme Huang Yueli, she intentionally toppled her armament furnace, and those materials which had already been half refined had all spilled out, and that was something which she planned to fail in. Of course, in order to derive at her ultimate aim, that was all worth it. But if her armament furnace were to explode this time round, then it would be considered as her second failure. In the Armament Master Certification Assessment, one person had at most 3 chances at refining, and if she were to fail this time, that would mean that this was her last chance, and moreover she was still at the fixed topic stage. Later on there would still be the free topic section. If this went on, she would have failed miserably in a very easy task, so even she herself would not be able to pass the certification assessment. Li Shuer was scared stiff, but just at this moment, she heard a light shout from her right side, "Settle." The raging flames which were running amok on the armament furnace seemed to be casted with a settlement spell as it suddenly stopped, and following that a burst of powerful profound energy suppressed it as it slowly turned weak and slowly grew smaller before finally returning back to the position of the fire entrance. The situation immediately stabilized. "Oh, that's great. Thank why." Li Shuer was pleasantly surprised as she started to thank the person who helped her. But upon lifting up her head, she stopped in her tracks. Because standing before her was Huang Yueli. The person who had helped to stabilize the flames was actually her. This time round, Li Shuer seemed as though she had swallowed a fly as the word of thanks was stuck at the back of her throat, totally unable to speak. Huang Yueli wasn't angry at all and only stretched out her hand and patted Li Shuer's furnace lid with smile, yet not a smile, as she said, "I say, Senior Sister Li, you'd better be more careful. I know that you're almost going to run around naked, so you don't feel so happy. But now you're still in the middle of the assessment, and if you don't pass this assessment, that would really be giving away your bride and losing your army on top of it. Who needs you to tell me that? Humph, I'm telling you, you've only won temporarily. Don't be too complacent so quickly." Li Shuer was so angry that the top of her head was fuming. Huang Yueli smiled lightly and slowly walked away. Li Shuer looked at her graceful back as she cursed her silently in her mind. "Laugh, laugh all you want. In a little while more, you'll have no chance to laugh at all. Let's see between the both of us, who will have the final laugh." She only cared about cursing her in her mind and totally had not noticed that when Huang Yueli patted her furnace lid earlier, she had secretly lifted it a little, and following her style, she dropped a piece of little black stone in. That piece of stone was actually the mirage cloudy rock which Li Shuer had thrown into Huang Yueli's armament furnace earlier. The mirage cloudy rock melted under high temperature and indeed was very difficult to remove, but that was only for ordinary armament masters and not for Huang Yueli. You can also listen on. Earlier, when the profound armament was about to take shape, Huang Yueli had extracted the mirage cloudy rock out without any traces. Later on, she intentionally used her profound energy, causing Li Shuer's flames to run amok, thereby creating an opportunity to throw the mirage cloudy rock back into Li Shuer's armament furnace. To be able to complete the extraction of impurities and molding process at the same time, this was something unimaginable for ordinary armament masters, so Li Shuer had not even considered that such a thing could even happen under the skies. So naturally, it was not possible for her to detect that Huang Yueli actually used her own methods to obtain retribution from her. Huang Yueli was brought away by Li Moying to the VIP seating after she had completed her refining and was surrounded by President Hu and Principal Jiang with all sorts of questions. Li Shuer saw that and was feeling infuriated. If it hadn't been for the fact that she knew that she would be able to bring Huang Yueli down later, she probably wouldn't have been able to continue. Due to the earlier explosion, the temperature of Li Shuer's armament furnace had been slightly high, and she was worried that the materials would be affected, causing the final formation stage to have an accident. But out of her expectations, the forming stage was extremely smooth, not wasting any extra effort, and she obtained a pair of wrist guards. From the exterior, the shape was extremely perfect, even much better than her usual standard. Looks like her luck today wasn't bad at all. Li Shuer was overjoyed, feeling that Lady Luck was on her side today. Thinking about that, the movements on her hands turned faster and the second free topic section had been successful as well, so not much time later, it was also completed. The second person to complete this assessment is Li Shuer. Tang Jinhua praised Li Shuer when she handed in her profound armament. Shuer, the product which you have submitted is not bad, this set of wrist guards. Looks like it's already a first-tier middle-grade profound armament, not bad at all. Looks like you should have no problem passing the Armament Master Certification Assessment today. Congratulations. The corners of Li Shuer's lips curled, but she felt that she really didn't feel like smiling at all. The reason was because besides Tang Jinhua, no one else cared if she had already completed the assessment. No matter if she had surpassed her usual standard and refined a first-tier middle-grade profound armament, but not one student expressed shock or gasp in admiration over this. With Huang Yueli's exceptional shocking performance right before her, this little bit of capability really couldn't cause any waves. Li Shuer had specially stood on top of the stage for a little moment, more hoping that someone could have noticed her. In the end, all she heard were praises about Huang Yueli and how popular she was, causing her to turn green, stomping her feet as she rushed angrily back to the contenders' seating area. The practical assessment was a total of 4 hours. When the assessment ended, if any examinees were not able to complete both sections of the assessment or refine the required profound armaments, then they would not be able to continue on. In reality, when time was up, there were only 4 people who managed to successfully refine 2 pieces of profound armament, so the remaining examinees were eliminated on the spot. As for those 4 who had successfully completed the assessment, the profound armaments that they had refined were all placed on stage, exhibiting it to all the students present. Tang Jinhua walked up with all smiled as he announced, "Students, this round's Armament Master Certification Assessment has ended successfully. Following this is what everyone is most concerned about, the announcement of the final results of the assessment. According to tradition, we will now publicly test the performance of each profound armament and award the final marks. You can also listen on." The students below the stage all started to get excited. Today they had been watching for the longest time ever and they were actually a little tired. The most important moment had finally arrived. Everyone wanted to know how the armament apprentices fared in their standard. Especially Huang Yueli with such exceptional armament refining skills. What kind of fine quality profound armament had she refined? Tang Jinhua didn't disappoint as he first held up Huang Yueli's works. "I believe that everyone wanted to see the formidable power of the profound armament that Miss Bai had refined, so we shall first start testing the 2 profound armaments which she had refined." "That's great. I've long wanted to know how powerful that pair of wrist guards as well as those 3 accessories, since it's been so beautifully done it. I think you'd better not get your hopes too high up. Generally speaking, when the exterior of the profound armament is too pretty, the power will normally not match up. Very few armament masters are able to balance both sides, but Bai Ruoli is so awesome, maybe she might be able to do it." Amidst the discussions, Tang Jinhua held up that pair of wrist guards as he buckled it onto his hand. Suddenly he gave an embarrassed look. "Hey, this wrist guard is slightly smaller and made for ladies, so I can't put it on. Is there any other armament master out here who is willing to help me test this?" He had just ended his sentence when several armament masters immediately stood up. "I'll do it." In the end, a petite female armament master managed to snag to the front of the stage as she received the wrist guards. Tang Jinhua took a look at her. She was a first-tier armament master, rather young, and she used to be a student of Celestial Light Academy. She had just passed through the certification assessment last year, and at that time, she had just turned 18 years old, so she was also one of the armament refining talents whom the Armament Guild placed emphasis on nurturing. "Miss Ning Xiao, it's you. You're so fast." Ning Xiao nodded as she laughed. "Everyone's snatching, so if I'm not quick enough, how would that do?" Saying that, she received the wrist guards and put it onto her arms. Ning Xiao's wrists were slender and the size was just right. Moreover, This set of wrist guards were exceptionally exquisite, which brought out her fair yet flexible wrists. The patterns on the exterior of the wrist guards brought out a kind of mysterious charm and looked exceptionally pleasing to the eye. Wow, this is just too beautiful. Even if it's not a profound armament and just a pair of bracelet accessory, I'm sure many young ladies will like it. As Ning Xiao was talking, under Tang Jinhua's guidance, her right hand struck out towards a piece of strength testing stone. Very quickly, the strength testing stone reflected the wrist guard's test results. Tang Jinhua took a look at it and his hand trembled. Defense and speed are all 15% and above. Each attribute in a dual-attributed profound armament range upgrade would normally be lower than single-attributed armaments, but in Miss Bai's set of wrist guards, the dual attributes had exceeded close to double than each single attribute. This has already reached a second-tier profound armament standard. What? Second-tier profound armament? How is that possible? Even if Bai Ruoli has the ability to refine a second-tier profound armament, but the materials supplied in the assessment are all first-tier materials, so how could she possibly refine a second-tier profound armament? That's right, this is just too ridiculous. However, the truth was displayed right in front of their eyes, and the Armament Guild was the most professional, so there shouldn't be any mistake in their strength testing stone. Tang Jinhua spent some time to compose himself and quivered as he put the wrist guards back into the box before holding up the other set of profound armament, the set of 3 pieces of profound artifact, which Huang Yueli had refined. This time round, even before Tang Jinhua could open his mouth, Ning Xiao had already snatched it over. You can also listen on. I'll do it, let me be the one to do the testing. This set are all ladies' accessories, so Master Tang, you'd definitely be too shy to put it on. Tang Jinhua had not even had the time to stop her when Ning Xiao had already made a grab at it and put it on. She finally came to understand that this Miss Bai was a real armament refining genius, and in front of her, she who was also called a talent was just not enough to match up. To be able to help such an armament master who had long surpassed her to test her products was a kind of glory among the armament masters. As reciprocation, the party whom was being tested would normally give some guidance to the party who had helped to test. This was exactly the reason why when Tang Jinhua asked for testers, a huge crowd of people rushed up to grab this opportunity. Ning Xiao had grabbed the first time and wasn't willing to give up the second chance. To be able to gain some pointers from a genius like Huang Yueli, this opportunity didn't come by too often, so of course she would need to monopolize it. Ning Xiao put on that set of profound artifact and unsurprisingly, she received a pile of praises. These accessories were refined even more exquisitely than that pair of wrist guards, and even Sky Cloud City's best jadeware stores were not able to come out with this kind of design. Ning Xiao exercised her wrists and was just about to strike. Wait a minute, Master Ning. Li Shuai chose the exact moment as she clenched her teeth and stood up from her seat, shouting out, stopping the testing. What? Everyone was surprised and Tang Jinhua frowned. Initially Li Shuai was rather nervous, but since she had already opened her mouth, she might as well set her heart straight and rushed to the front of the stage with quick steps as she shouted loudly, Master, I want to make a report. Report? Yes, I want to make a report. Earlier Bai Ruoli had cheated in the second round of assessment. Cheated? Tang Jinhua's eyes widened, totally unable to believe what she said. You. Shuai, you said Miss Bai cheated? Could you have mistaken? Why would she cheat? It wasn't just Tang Jinhua, everyone present had blown up because of that one sentence which Li Shuai said. Everyone expressed that they didn't believe what she said because Huang Yueli's ability was placed right in front of their eyes. Just based on the skills which she had displayed earlier, would she not be able to refine a first-tier profound armament? Moreover, the assessment was held publicly in front of everyone, so who had the ability to cheat under so many people's eyes? Furthermore, Huang Yueli's reputation was like the sun at midday. Just how much had she to fret before she even wanted to use the Mirage Cloudy Rock? If it was found out, wouldn't her reputation go down the drain and lose more than she could gain? Li Shuai said, Master, this isn't a misunderstanding. I've seen it with my own eyes. Earlier when Bai Ruoli was refining the second profound armament, she obviously didn't have enough profound energy and almost failed at the forming stage. After that, I saw. I saw that she threw a piece of mirage cloudy rock into the armament furnace before she finally succeeded at refining. What? Such a thing happened? Tang Jinhua cried out in surprise. It's not possible. You must have seen wrongly, right? Master Bai would never do such a thing. Master, you're saying that I'm accusing Bai Ruoli? Tang Jinhua said, Swear, it's not that I don't trust you. But why would Master Bai do such a thing? You must have seen it wrongly. Li Shuer continued, I have evidence. This matter is actually very simple. As long as you seriously test this set of profound artifact which she had refined, we'd be able to find out the might of it, so the truth will be revealed. You can also listen on. If she really added in the mirage cloudy rock, then testing it a few more times would give the game away. Tang Jinhua went into a blank and he started hesitating at this point in time. Although he felt that this matter couldn't possibly happen, but Li Shuer actually said it so solemnly, why did she seem like she had absolute certainty over it? Could it be really that something fishy was going on? It wasn't just one or two people who thought in that way, and everyone threw their gazes towards Huang Yueli, who was seated at the VIP seating area. Huang Yueli was just talking to President Hu and President Gong as the trio were discussing on armament refining skills and were talking the same language. Especially when Huang Yueli offered various opinions which the two presidents had never heard of. Just listening to the rough outline which she was describing, and it was as though the grass that clogged the way was suddenly gone. This made the two presidents gave her an even higher evaluation, as the way they looked at her seemed to resemble looking at a piece of rare treasure. Both of them were glad that Huang Yueli had chosen Sky Cloud City's Armament Guild to be the place of her certification, because this really gained much face for Sky Cloud City. But unfortunately, Huang Yueli was extremely tight-lipped. The both of them had scouted several times but were not able to find out anything about her apprenticeship. Li Moying had been sitting quietly beside Huang Yueli's side and had not interrupted into her conversation. But those seating around the surrounding could tell that even though young sect master held an aloof expression, not much different from usual, but every single time he looked at Huang Yueli, the gentleness beneath his eyes were enough to make any young lady enraptured. At such an ambient moment, Li Shuer suddenly jumped out to slander Huang Yueli, and it was such a serious accusation. Li Moying's eyebrows creased together as the expression on his face turned extremely ugly. He was just about to fly into a rage when he felt a soft little hand pressing against the back of his hand, followed by a sweet young voice echoing into his ear. All right, don't be angry. Let me settle this myself. Li Moying turned around and in an unfriendly tone, he said, Li Shuer had time and again slandered you. Even if you can tolerate it, I cannot take it any further. Huang Yueli smiled, I'm not tolerating anything at all. Don't you know me well enough? How will I remain indifferent after being splashed by dirty water? Li Moying pursed his thin lips as he stared at her with a I'm very unhappy look, but he didn't insist on getting his way. He hadn't discovered that he was bearing a classic henpecked male expression. Principal Jiang and the rest who were by the side had all become dumbstruck from this, as they had never thought that the overbearing young sect master Li had no definite opinions in front of his fiancée at all. Huang Yueli saw his expression and her lips curled upwards as she reassuringly patted his shoulders and turned to walk towards the stage. Li Shuer, are you sure that it's not because you're afraid of having to run around naked, so you've came out with this cheap trick to slander me? She turned towards Li Shuer as her voice remained peaceful. Li Shuer sneered, slander? I'm telling the absolute truth. Go ahead and deny as you wish. When the testing results are out later, I'll see what you have to say then. Anyway, she had witnessed it with her own eyes when the mirage cloudy rock dropped into that wretched lass's furnace, and just based on this, even if she had 100 mouths, she would not be able to clear her own name. Huang Yueli glanced sideways at her as she laughed. All right, since you are so certain. Then let's start with the testing. Tang Jinhua could only reply, all right, since you all have no objections, then let's start. Those vulgar quality profound armaments which had the mirage cloudy rock added to it would normally not be able to be used for more than 10 times before it starts to break down. So in order to ascertain Li Shuer's words, let's test it continuously for 20 times. You can also listen on. If it had been tested 20 times and the profound armament appears to be damaged, then it would mean that Miss Bai's profound armament really has a problem. Now, will Miss Ning please start? Ning Xiao had already put on the profound artifact and was just waiting for Tang Jinhua's notification. Upon hearing his command, she turned around and took a look at Li Shuer as she scornfully humphed at her. Anyone with eyes were able to tell that Li Shuer's fabrication of accusation was purely out of her own jealousy. Wasn't she just jealous of Huang Yueli's shocking armament refining talent, snatching away the limelight which originally belonged to her? Such a narrow-minded and sinister woman actually could become an armament master? Ning Xiao said, "I will do my best, so everyone please look carefully. Don't say I'm not doing my best if the profound armament wasn't damaged later. I don't have a master like Master Tang and will not be able to take to being slandered by anyone." Saying that, she didn't even bother to look at Li Shuer's steely green face as she turned towards the strength testing stone and immediately stuck out. Ning Xiao's move was especially simple and was the introductory move which every fire-attributed practitioners had to learn, fireball technique. Because this type of profound skill was most commonly known and was one of the basics, so it became the standard strike to use when testing profound armaments. She had just struck when the movements of her hands stopped as she gave out a surprised and joyous expression. Besides raising the attack power, this set of profound artifact also increased the speed of profound energy regeneration. It's too mystical. The profound energy which I had used wasn't even as much as what was regenerated. My profound energy has remained being charged to the maximum. Ning Xiao's speed at striking was pretty fast and it was just a joss stick time before she had continuously struck out 10 over moves. Furthermore, she apparently seemed to have a lot of experience in testing profound armaments because each profound energy's intensity was almost the same. Initially, Li Shuer crossed both her arms around her chest and a cold sneer hung around her lips, looking at Ning Xiao's testing confidently. But as Ning Xiao's moves increased, from once to twice, all the way till it had broken through 10 times, the expression on her face gradually turned ugly. Very quickly, the number of tests had reached 15 times. By now, Li Shuer was so anxious that she couldn't remain seated properly as she stood up from her seat with both hands clenched into fists, her eyes staring intently on the strength testing stone. She kept repeating in her mind, why hadn't this profound armament broke down? Quickly break down now. However, even after all 20 times of testing had been completed, the 3 pieces of profound artifact remained intact, as though it had not been used at all. Ning Xiao removed the profound armament and placed it beside Tang Jinhua, calling out loud, "Master Tang, I've already finished my testing and this set of profound artifacts effect is indeed outstanding. Not only is it durable, it had already reached the standard of a second-tier profound armament." Tang Jinhua hurriedly replied, "Thank you for your trouble, Miss Ning. Master Bai's ability is indeed outstanding. Just using first-tier materials, she actually refines a set of second-tier profound artifact. This assessment has been completed in such an outstanding way. I hereby announce that Bai Ruoli has passed this assessment with full marks and she will gain, impossible, it's just impossible." Li Shuer was so infuriated that she was about to go mad and she couldn't suppress the rage and shock in her heart as she rushed upwards without a care for anything else. This profound armament couldn't possibly not be damaged. I've seen it with my own eyes that the Mirage Cloudy Rock had dropped into her armament furnace, so how could it possibly not be broken? Something fishy is definitely happening here. Ning Xiao, have you colluded together with Bai Ruoli? Ning Xiao sneered, haven't I already showed you carefully earlier? I definitely have not gone easy. Impossible, you must have gone easy on her. Otherwise how is it possible that this profound armament is not damaged at all? You can also listen on. It didn't break down. Because Master Bai's skill is superb and had not used any prohibited materials, so of course it wouldn't break down. What Ning Xiao said was the truth, but the infuriated Li Shuer apparently didn't believe her words. With a lightning move of her hand, she went up ahead and snatched the item. Impossible. Bai Ruoli used the Mirage Cloudy Rock. That's absolutely right. You all must have went easy on her. I'll test it personally myself. I'll test it 100 times. It will definitely break down. Enough. Tang Jinhua couldn't take it any further and sternly cried out to stop her. Shuer, what's come over you today? Do you know how terrible you look right now? I have already tested the armament continuously for 20 times according to your request, and it was proven that Master Bai's profound armament indeed had no problem at all. You're the one speaking at will and spoiling Master Bai's reputation. Not only did you not apologize to Master Bai, you even continued to splash dirty water on her. Which ordinary profound armament would not break down after being tested continuously for 100 times? What can that prove? To think that you even came out with this idea. Tang Jinhua was mild-tempered and very seldom did he put on such a stern attitude. If it was usual times, Li Shuer would definitely not have insisted on her way after hearing what he said. But today, Li Shuer only had one thought left, and that was if she could not pull Huang Yueli down, then she would have to run around naked. Furthermore, with Huang Yueli's innate talent, once she entered the armament guild, would she Li Shuer even had any standing left? No way, this profound armament definitely had a problem. I will definitely prove that it had a problem. Li Shuer stretched out her hand and grabbed the necklace. Huang Yueli stretched out one hand and held onto her wrist. Senior Sister Li, why are you so agitated? The profound armament which I had refined is very valuable, and if you were to spoil it, can you even afford to pay for it? Let me go. Li Shuer wanted to shake her hand off but realized that Huang Yueli's strength was extremely big and she had no way of resisting it at all. Huang Yueli's fingers held onto her wrists gently as though she didn't use too much strength. She laughed lightly. Senior Sister Li, why do you keep insisting that I had used the Mirage Cloudy Rock? Could it be that you have done something wrong and feeling guilty over it? What? How could I possibly feel guilty? Obviously it's you who had cheated. Why would I need to cheat? Earlier president who had already told me that even if I didn't refine any profound armament today, he will still give me a badge and my passing of the certification is a sure thing, so why should I take the risk? What? What did you say? Li Shuer's face turned pale white, unable to believe what she heard. President who had already promised to certify this wretched lass? Then what was she still scheming against? Wasn't it just a waste of her effort? Huang Yueli continued again. On the contrary, Senior Sister Li, why do you keep insisting that I used the Mirage Cloudy Rock? Most armament masters would not even think that there would be anyone who would use this to cheat, right? Your casual guess went straight to this answer, so could it be because you yourself had used the Mirage Cloudy Rock to cheat, so everyone seemed to be cheating as well? What do you mean? Li Shuer's eyes grew wide. Tang Jinhua heard the meaning within her words and asked, Master Bai, what do you mean? Huang Yueli continued, I also want to make a report. Actually, while I was in the middle of the assessment, I saw something very interesting. Earlier when Li Shuer couldn't control the flames and almost caused an explosion, but later on in order to prevent the refining to fail, she added a piece of Mirage Cloudy Rock inside. I didn't want to expose her initially, but I had not expected her to splash the dirty water onto me instead, so I can only tell the truth. You can also listen on. You're sprouting rubbish. How could I possibly use the Mirage Cloudy Rock? You're slandering me. You're obviously trying to exact revenge on me, so that's why you're slandering me now. Li Shuer had not expected her to say that and went into a blank for a moment, but following that her anger flared up. She clearly knew in her heart on how serious such an accusation was, so when Huang Yueli said that about her, she couldn't take it at all. Huang Yueli took a glance at her and replied indifferently, like what Senior Sister Li said earlier, whether it is slandering or just blank talk, we need to see the evidence. I also request to proceed with multiple testing on the profound armament which Senior Sister Li had refined. But I'm not as mean as Senior Sister Li, just test it continuously for 10 times will do. Li Shuer heard her words and calmed down. She didn't know that her own armament furnace had something extra added to it and felt that she was innocent. So since she hadn't committed any wrong, then testing it shouldn't be an issue. In fact, it could also give Huang Yueli a tight slap on her face. She clenched her teeth and said, all right, test it then. Normal multiple testing are mostly 20 times, so you don't need to pretend to be magnanimous and say testing 10 times will do or whatever. Huang Yueli blinked and smiled. Senior Sister Li, I'm helping you. If we were to really test it for 20 times, I suspect that the profound armament which Senior Sister Li had refined, even without adding in any prohibited items, might break down after 20 times. So wouldn't that be framing an innocent person? The words she said wasn't just blind talk. All those newly ascended armament masters who had reached the first-tier standard existed such a problem, and that was the durability of the profound armament which they refined were usually weaker than others. Sometimes even without any intentionally fraud, due to the difference in standard, it would also break down easily. But these words to Li Shui's ears was skin to a tight slap given onto her face. This was simply looking down on her. Earlier Huang Yueli's profound armament had gone through a total of 20 testing, and yet it still appeared as though it was new. The result was hers could only stand the standard of testing it 10 times. But if it really were to be tested 20 times continuously, Li Shui didn't dare to guarantee that her profound armament would be good as new. Luckily, Tang Jinhua stepped in at a suitable moment. What Master Bai said is reasonable. Although I don't think Shuera would use any prohibited materials, but since Master Bai has such a query, then it's better that we test it out so that everyone could rest assured. For the sake of fairness, I as Li Shui's master should stay out of this. May I invite any armament master who is willing to step out to test it? This time, no armament master responded at all. Everyone seemed as though this matter was of no concern to them and looked on from a detached point of view. As compared to Huang Yueli's armament, that type of flocking attitude became an obvious difference. What kind of level did Li Shuera have? Helping her test would not gain them any benefits, and in fact, it would lower their standard. Tang Jinhua was helpless and could only pick someone personally. Miss Mu Limo, Miss Mu, can I trouble you to come up the stage please? Mu Limo was also a first-tier armament master who was newly promoted last year, and upon hearing her name being called, she unwillingly stepped upwards. She didn't say anything much and received the wrist guards from Tang Jinhua which Li Shui had refined and clasped it onto her wrists. A light tar sound was heard, and just hearing that gave a feeling which didn't seem like it was secured. She frowned. The quality of this wrist guards really isn't great. Could Mirage Cloudy Rock really have been added to it? You can also listen on. What? Tang Jinhua's forehead creased as the spectators looked on with interest and started whispering to one another. Li Shui bit her lips as sweat formed profusely on her forehead. Although she had self-confidence that she had not added any prohibited materials, but to be told off by a senior in front of everyone that the quality of her profound armament was very bad was still an embarrassing thing. Mu Limo prepared herself as she walked to the strength testing stone, and using all her force, she stuck out. An extremely bright pong sound was heard from the impact of her profound energy. One could tell that Mu Limo had expended quite an amount of energy, but after she stopped, everyone took a careful look at the digits on the strength testing stone, and all of them expressed a dazed look. That's weird. How could the digits be so bad? Right, just slightly over 1,000 over kilos. Even any worse-off second-stage realm practitioner would have this amount of strength, right? Although an armament master's martial cultivation isn't as great, but isn't she still wearing the wrist guards on her arms? Mu Limo herself also frowned. Master Tang, there seems to be a huge problem with this wrist guards. Even without wearing any profound armament usually, my results on the strength testing stone would be around 1,000 over kilos. This pair of wrist guards seemed to add any amplification at all. How could that be possible? Tang Jinhua replied objectively. Naturally he would not believe that his own disciple would cheat. Miss Mu, could it be that your condition today's isn't too well, so your strength is slightly low? Maybe it had nothing to do with the wrist guards. Li Shui cried out, not resigned to that fact. There couldn't be anything wrong with my wrist guard. It must be because of your condition. Mu Limo saw that not only did she not admit to it, she even claimed that she had a problem, so her expression was rather unhappy as she said, since you don't believe me, how about this? I'll remove the wrist guards and let you see how much strength is my original power. That would naturally be the best way. Li Shui was confident that the problem must be with Mu Limo. Mu Limo just barely touched the wrist guards and was prepared to remove it, but whoever knew that her fingers had just lightly touched it when she heard a clanging sound, that pair of wrist guards suddenly snapped into several pieces and the shattered pieces fell onto the ground. Even Mu Limo was stunned. She indeed felt that there was something wrong with Li Shui's wrist guards and was sure that it could not stand more than 10 testing rounds, but This. Just testing it once had completely caused the profound armament to shatter to pieces. This was her first time seeing such a thing happen. Silence filled the profound weapon chambers as everyone stared intently on the stage, unable to believe that such a ridiculous thing had just happened. However, after a moment of silence was a bustle of exclamations. Heavens, am I seeing things? The wrist guards which Li Shuer refined actually shattered just like that. What kind of lousy item was that? If whoever bought the profound armament which she refined, just using once only and it was spoilt, then wouldn't that person lose out big time? You don't understand. I've heard that no matter how bad the quality of most profound weapons are, there isn't any case where it would be damaged just after one time. At least it should be able to be used for 20 times. The durability of her wrist guards are so inferior, it must be exactly as what Bai Ruoli said earlier, she had used the prohibited materials. How could this be? I thought Li Shuer's armament refining talent is very high. So she had always been using prohibited materials to cheat us. That's right, Li Shuer is a shameless liar. The last time she had even charged me so much for a piece of profound armament. She's a fraud. Luckily Bai Ruoli's discerning eyes saw through her, otherwise God knows how many more people would be cheated by her. You can also listen on. Earth-shattering curses could be heard. Li Shuer couldn't believe that such a thing happened and was both shocked and indignant as her entire body shook. She pounced over and with her trembling hands, she picked up the shattered pieces of the wrist guards to take a look at it. She had refined such type of wrist guards several times before and every single time, she was able to refine it successfully. Moreover, the durability and strength were rather good. So when this topic was chosen, she was, in fact, extremely happy and had the confidence that she could complete it properly. But why did the quality this time had such a huge difference? She clearly used her effort to refine it. For a situation whereby the durability to be so inferior, generally speaking there would only one reason and that was the Mirage Cloudy Rock was added but she clearly had not. Wait a minute. Li Shuer suddenly thought of something and swiftly turned her head around, looking at a figure right behind her. At this moment, Huang Yueli happened to be looking at her as well and both their sights matched right together. You. It must be you, right? It's definitely you. Li Shuer's eyes were bloodshot as she stared daggers at Huang Yueli. Huang Yueli put on an innocent face. Senior Sister Li, what are you talking about? What does the problem with your profound armament have to do with me? You're still pretending. Li Shuer got up from the ground and agitatedly rushed over with the intention to hit her. It must be you. If it hadn't been for the fact that you had done something when I was refining armament, how would you possibly know that my profound armament has a problem and even said I used the Mirage Cloudy Rock? You even suggested to do the testing continuously. Huang Yueli's feet moved aside and evaded her attack as she displayed an aggrieved expression which had been maligned by someone. This. Senior Sister Li, you can eat indiscriminately but you cannot talk like that. I know that you used the Mirage Cloudy Rock and suggested to do the testing and now you said I'm the one who tampered with it. Then Senior Sister Li, earlier you were obviously the first person who said I used the Mirage Cloudy Rock and also the first to suggested to do continuous testing on the profound armament which I had refined. Does that mean that you also tampered my armament furnace? How could I possibly do such a thing? This are two totally different matters. Li Shuer was shot back and almost coughed up blood. This wretched lass actually used the exact same method and words to annoy her. Li Shuer was now 100% sure that Huang Yueli had definitely discovered what she had done, so using the same method which she came out with, she had done the exact same thing and thrown the Mirage Cloudy Rock back into her armament furnace. She just didn't know how on earth did Huang Yueli realized it and how she managed to do it. She clearly saw the Mirage Cloudy Rock melt in Huang Yueli's armament furnace, but Huang Yueli's profound armament was totally fine. But at the same time, her own furnace armament had unknowingly been added with something, but she turned out that she knew nothing about it. Li Shuer had never expected herself to be maligned and furthermore being charged with such a serious accusation. If she had been ascertained to have used the Mirage Cloudy Rock to pass off a fake product as a genuine one, then she would definitely be shut out by the armament guild. The consequence was not something which she could bear. She wanted to defend herself, to say that she was innocent and it was Huang Yueli who had framed her, but she had no evidence at all. What made her even unable to speak was she had just used the same method to frame Huang Yueli. If she said Huang Yueli's accusation was premeditated, then Huang Yueli could say the same thing, that Li Shui's earlier accusation was also her scheme to frame her. To use such a method to frame others at the Armament Master Certification Assessment was a horrible and lowly thing to do, and it would also result in being shut off by the Guild. You can also listen on. In this way, Li Shui didn't know how to explain so that other people would believe her. Li Shui, you really made me so disappointed. Tang Jinhua's voice rang. Li Shui raised her head up frenetically and saw Tang Jinhua's congealed expression and was frightened out of her wits. She hurriedly threw herself right before Tang Jinhua's feet and started crying out loud, "Master, I really didn't use the Mirage Cloudy Rock. Really. Please believe me. You now best on my armament refining standard. How could I possible so such a thing? Master, please believe me." Li Shui was very sure that the only person who could save her now was Tang Jinhua. Tang Jinhua saw her weeping so sadly and sympathy filled his heart. After all, she was his disciple whom he had taught for several years and had some feelings. But Tang Jinhua was an exceptional armament master with principles and was a just person, so the one thing he scorned the most was this kind of shifty behavior. If he wasn't such a person, President who would never had entrusted him to preside over the Armament Master Certification Assessment. Shui, you indeed have some innate talent, but you're too eager for success and profit. Don't think I don't know that you've been boasting to everyone that you're going to become an armament master very soon, and you even said a lot of things which looked down on other armament masters. If you are not able to pass this round's certification assessment, you'd definitely feel very embarrassed, right? But even so, you cannot use this kind of method to derive at your aim. Tang Jinhua's heart simply ached. In actual fact, after he had taken in Li Shui as his disciple, he had always heard quite a number of students gossiping about her behind her back. Li Shui's character was arrogant, and using her identity as Tang Jinhua's disciple, she had done her fair share of bullying the other students. But as Tang Jinhua felt that this disciple had some innate talent, and most armament masters' characters were mostly arrogant and aloof, which was a common sight, so he just bore with it. However, this time round, she actually resorted to deception and even cheated during the certification assessment. This had already stepped on Tang Jinhua's bottom line. Master, please believe me, I really didn't. It's all by Ruoli's fault. Enough, the results of the testing is already clear to all and you're still trying to deny. With a character like that, how can you even become an armament master? The more Tang Jinhua heard, the angrier he became. If Li Shui were to admit her mistake and begged for mercy, he might have become soft-hearted and be lenient, but not only had she not admitted her mistake, she even splashed dirty water onto Huang Yueli. Tang Jinhua was extremely disappointed. Li Shui, you used the prohibited Mirage Cloudy Rock to counterfeit, and according to the Armament Guild's affiliated regulations, we shall now cancel your results for this round's certification assessment. At the same time, your status as a high-leveled armament apprentice has also been stripped, and you will never be able to register with the Armament Guild for the rest of your life. Now please leave the profound weapon chambers. Li Shui's mouth opened wide with shock as she kept shaking her head furiously. No, Master, you cannot do this to me, Master. Tang Jinhua replied coldly, don't call me Master, I don't have a disciple like you. Li Shui really became panic-stricken this time. She could not explain the usage of the Mirage Cloudy Rock, and this time her results would be cancelled and she would be driven out of the profound weapon chambers, were all irreversible matters. But as long as she was still Tang Jinhua's disciple, given Tang Jinhua's special status in the Armament Guild, she would still have hopes of clearing her name in future. But if even Tang Jinhua were to drive her out, then she would never had any chance of changing her fortune. You can also listen on. Master, no, please listen to my explanation, listen to me. Li Shui cried and threw a tantrum and was just short of rolling around and kicking up a fuss on the floor. She didn't look one bit like an armament master in this way. Instead, she looked no different from those food market aunties who were shouting abuses in the streets. Her entire body was filled with soot when she had refined the armaments earlier, and her hair was messy, with her head and face covered in grime. Heavens, Li Shuer looks really scary like that. I had never expected her to be such a person. After doing such an embarrassing thing, she even dared to deny. That's right, earlier she had even maligned Junior Sister Bai of cheating, and in the end, Junior Sister Bai's profound armament was just so useful. True gold fears no fire. Whereas her own was refined using the prohibited material, and the profound armament which she had refined could not be used after one round of testing. Really, to be in the same academy as her, I also feel very embarrassed. Hearing the words of despise from the surroundings, Li Shuer couldn't help but feel that she wanted to kill herself. She would not even be able to wash herself clean even if she jumped into the Yellow River. However, the matter wasn't resolved yet. A shuffle of footsteps was heard coming from her back, and following that, Huang Yueli's voice hovered over her head. Li Shuer, you seem to have forgotten one thing. What else do you want? Haven't I been harmed into such a terrible state by you? Li Shuer instantly raised her head with a face of fury, as though her eyes were about to shoot fire out. Huang Yueli's lips rose upwards slightly as she took her own sweet time to talk. Senior Sister Li, I don't understand what you mean. I harmed you. Your cultivation and ability is so different from mine, so why would I even waste my time to harm you? I can only say, the evil that you brought about yourself are the hardest to bear. If you do something bad, there will be retribution. You don't think you've won already. I won't let you off. I've heard you said that umpteen times until my ears are growing callous. If you have what it takes to win me, I welcome your challenge anytime. But now, isn't it time to fulfill the bet between us? Bet? Li Shuer blankly repeated and couldn't recall what she was saying. Huang Yueli kind-heartedly reminded her, this morning when I was registering, we made a bet that if I could obtain the Armament Master certification, you would run around naked in Sky Cloud City's street. Senior Sister Li, surely you're not intending to renege on your debt, so you're pretending to forget about it, right? Li Shuer suddenly recalled this as her eyes saw black and almost fainted on the spot. She wanted to renege on it, but earlier she had really forgotten cleanly about it because all she had on her mind was that she was shut off by the Armament Guild and also driven out by her master. Now, before things had even been resolved, another heavy blow came striking on her. Huang Yueli continued, before the second round of assessment started, I still reminded you about it and so many people heard about it, isn't it? I gave you a chance to take it back, but you yourself said that you will definitely keep your word. Now it's time for you to fulfill your promise. Li Shuer's entire body was soaked in cold sweat and she couldn't stop trembling. She had now become a rat whom everyone wanted to beat, and if she were to go run around naked, then she would really have no face to live anymore, and for this entire lifetime, she would be too embarrassed to take another step in Sky Cloud City. What are you saying? Junior Sister Bai, how could you be so heartless? At least I'm your fiancé's sister, and your future sister-in-law. You can also listen on. Huang Yueli sneered, so what about it? You are able to deal with your sister-in-law with such a heavy hand and asked me to run around naked? Where on earth would there be such a heartless and sinister woman like you? Li Shuer started shouting out loud. She couldn't be bothered about anything else now. Anyway, she had already been embarrassed enough. So she would also admit to being shameless. She only knew one thing, she absolutely could not run around naked. Otherwise the entire Sky Cloud City would treat her as a laughingstock, and in future, even if she was able to turn around, this would also become the biggest stain for her entire lifetime. Furthermore, there wouldn't be any one reputable man who dared to take her as his wife. Li Shuer wailed like a ghost and howled like a wolf, and that egged Tang Jinhua's sympathy. Thinking that they were once master and disciple, he couldn't bear to see her end being so miserable. He opened his mouth. Master Bai, Li Shuer had already gotten her just desserts, so is it possible that you can give me some face? Huang Yueli's eyebrows rose. Master Tang, you're so defensive of Li Shuer, so aren't you afraid that other people would be mistaken that you're the same like her and actually a scum who secretly used the Mirage Cloudy Rock to cheat others? Tang Jinhua choked instantly because what Huang Yueli said was the truth. Initially their master-disciple relationship would have caused other people's suspicions, so it would be safer to avoid doing anything which might arouse suspicions. But that wouldn't be able to purge the suspicions, and if he were to continue helping Li Shuai. Huang Yueli turned towards Li Shuai. You're going on your own to run around naked, or do you want me to get someone to remove all your clothing and throw you out? Li Shuai knew that she was capable of doing what she said and was scared out of her wits as she started screaming, "Second brother, I'm your biological sister. Bai Ruoli wants to throw me out to run around naked. You dare to do such outrageous act?" She wanted to make use of kinship to suppress them, thinking that if Li Moying needed his reputation, then no matter how he hated her, he would still have to save her today. Alas, her thinking was wrong. How would a matchless expert like Li Moying be scared stiff by a few words from her? Moreover, he only had Huang Yueli in his eyes. As long as his little fox was happy, he didn't mind going against everyone in the entire world. Moreover, it was to deal with a disgusting person. Li Moying stretched out his hand and snapped his fingers. In a flash, Mo Yi appeared in front of him and bowed. "Master, your instructions please." Li Moying said, "Go help third miss out." Seeing her being so long-winded and yet she wasn't able to even fix up that dumb thing, Mo Yi responded, "Yes," then turned around and left. Principal Jiang and the rest were just watching on the sidelines, and without any exception, their faces were filled with terror. On one hand was because Mo Yi had always been hiding nearby and none of them noticed it, so it showed how powerful the invisibility skill the shadow guards had. On the other hand was because of how much Li Moying had doted on Huang Yueli, to go to such an extent. Even though Li Moying's words sounded like he despised her, but who would have recognized it as his way of pampering her? No matter what, Li Shuai was indeed his sister, and even if they had long heard about their enmity, but most people, for the sake of their own reputation, they would have let Li Shuai off. No one had expected that Li Moying would be so resolute, and couldn't bear for Huang Yueli to suffer even a bit of injustice. Mo Yi just stepped up on stage and didn't even bother to say anything superfluous, so he directly tapped her mute acupoint. Following that, he stripped her naked and threw her totally nude outside the profound weapon chamber's main entrant. You can also listen on. Li Shuai had never thought that dragging Li Moying down the water would not save her life. On the contrary, it sped up the process of her end. She fell heavily onto the ground, feeling all kinds of weird gazes on her and different voices with words of ridicule, so she finally could not help but rolled her eyes and fainted. Young sect master Li was not like his wife. Huang Yueli liked to beat the person up until they were convinced and ready to concede, but Li Moying didn't care if that person was convinced or not. Anyway, if they were not convinced, then it's just a matter of time when that person would be dead. The students who were around saw this scene and did not feel that Li Moying was too harsh or heartless on the way he handled things. This type of scum who resorted to trickery was one whom Celestial Light Academy students despised the most. So this time round, Li Shuai had really become a scurrying mouse. Mo Yi was stunned that Li Shuai had fainted so quickly, and not knowing what step he should take next, he looked at Huang Yueli for further instructions. Huang Yueli had not expected Li Moying to get Mo Yi to make a move, and she was dumbstruck for a moment. After a short moment, she simply smiled and shook her head. Li Shuai really knew how to invite death by her own recklessness. She actually dared to splash dirty water onto Li Moying without even considering the fact that this second brother of hers was no soft-hearted person. Huang Yueli smiled and in a low voice, she said, "Brother Mo Yi, since she has already fainted, she's also quite pitiful, so don't force her to walk on her own. Rent her a carriage and I'll come out with the money, so that others don't say that young sect master Li is torturing his own sister." Mo Yi was speechless. This pair of fiancé and fiancée were more black-bellied than the other. Really admired Li Shuai to have the guts to anger them. Did she felt that her end wasn't miserable enough? The minute Mo Yi received the command, he proceeded to drag the person out and disappeared from the crowd's view. But those present all understood that Li Shuai was about to tour Sky Cloud City streets, and momentarily, they were slightly indecisive. Running around naked wasn't a common sight and worth watching, but the Armament Master Certification Assessment was about to proceed into the final stage, and if they were to leave now, it would be a waste. Which side should they stay with? Some people slipped out from the profound weapon chamber's back door and attracted a burst of chaos. Tang Jinhua spent quite an amount of effort before he finally managed to control the entire situation. In the end, he finished the testing on the profound armaments which were refined by the other two examinees and gave the marks. In the end, only one examinee's works had passed the testing and was recognized as a first-tier lower-grade profound armament, which met the passing mark and passed the certification. When the examinee heard the result, he was so happy that he cried tears of joy. Including Huang Yueli, there were a total of 2 examinees who had attained the certification to become a first-tier armament master. When the results were announced, the entire profound weapon chambers was filled with thunderous applause and there were numerous words of praises filled with envy. Before today, no one had imagined that there would be a genius like Huang Yueli. Not only did she have outstanding talent in cultivation, furthermore she had shocking innate talent and ability in armament refining. This had simply broke through their imagination. Li Moying stood up and gradually walked towards Huang Yueli. His pressing grandeur, robust stature, and pitilessly handsome face had revealed a rare gentle expression. Wherever that aristocratic figure went, everyone would automatically split out a pathway for him so that he could directly reach Huang Yueli's side. Huang Yueli raised her head and saw his figure against the light, and she too became stunned for a moment. Although she had already seen this face numerous times, but sometimes she felt that she couldn't help but be attracted by his suave and respectable grandeur, sometimes even forgetting where she was. You can also listen on. Li Moying lowered his head and saw her somewhat misty expression as the corners of his lips raised slightly. He lowered his body and got up close to her as his warm breath blew right on her ear. Congratulations, Leah, for successfully passing through the assessment. Teach. Thank you. That pair of peach blossom eyes was so near and that gaze was so bright and tempting till Huang Yueli felt her face slightly hot and her tongue didn't seem so sharp after all. Li Moying smiled lightly and lowered his tone, bearing a charm filled with sexiness as he stretched out his hand towards her. Huang Yueli subconsciously closed her eyes and her eyelashes kept fluttering. She could feel Li Moying closing into her, very near. Furthermore, nearer and nearer. Did he wanted to kiss her? Suddenly she felt a slightly warm sensation on her forehead followed by the man's willful laughter. Huang Yueli hurriedly opened her eyes only to discover that Li Moying had stretched out his hand to wipe away the soot which was smeared on her face when she was refining armaments and at the same time, gathered the hair strands stuck on her forehead to the back of her ear. He hadn't done any off-the-scale action and simply stood up. The expression on her face turned stiff. This was a misunderstanding. Li Moying saw through her embarrassed look and purposely stared at her in a teasing manner as he licked the corners of his lips and said, Leah, what unhealthy things are you thinking of? Are you thinking of doing something bad to me? But we're now in the profound weapon chambers and there are so many people looking on. I cannot comply with you because I'd feel embarrassed. You. Get further away. Huang Yueli finally understood that this stinky man had done that on purpose. She was so angry that she pushed him away and jumped to one side. But at this moment, no matter how she tried to avoid arousing suspicions, it was useless because their actions had already aroused waves of whistling in the entire profound weapon chambers. So sweet, senior brother Li and junior sister Bai are so compatible. Isn't that so? One's ability is exceptionally outstanding and the other has such exceptional innate talent and moreover, she was an armament master so they simply cannot be more compatible. I envy them so much. When will I be able to find someone as great as that as my other half? If in the past, someone felt that Huang Yueli's innate talent and status did not match up to Li Moying's, then after today, no one would even dare to gossip about this. To be able to balance both cultivation and armament refining, there weren't many of such geniuses in the entire soaring heavens continent. Anyone who saw them both together really made others lose their courage to even feel jealous and could only admit the existence of such a perfect combination. But very quickly, a set of different voices rang. Senior brother Li, kiss her. That's right, quickly kiss her. Can't you tell that junior sister Bai is looking forward to it? Huang Yueli's face flushed even redder. Damn, it was all Li Moying, that scoundrel's fault. He actually gave her that kind of hint. After that her head seemed to have water seeping in. Why had she lost her senses just after looking at that pair of eyes? Huang Yueli turned around fiercely, thinking to find the one who took the lead in heckling, but as there were simply too many people in the profound weapon chambers, she had no hope of finding the culprit. As for Li Moying, he displayed a natural and unrestrained manner and even nodded towards the crowd as he made a gesture for them to keep silent. All right, please don't anyway talk, Leah is very shy. In addition, this is the Armament Master Certification Assessment, so please don't let the minor details obscure the main point and affect Master Tang from presiding over the assessment. On seeing Li Moying's rare gentle smile, instead of the screaming dying down, it became even more intense. You can also listen on. Many female students even clutched their chests, bearing a fainting look as they mumbled. Senior brother Li actually smiled. Oh no, I'm going to faint. Huang Yueli's lips kept twitching and she finally could not take it any further as she secretly kicked Li Moying and said furiously, "Have you had enough? Do you still know that Master Tang is still presiding? Why did you get up here for? Go to one corner right now." Li Moying unwillingly stepped down. Tang Jinhua gave a cough and his face displayed an ambiguous smile, but he tried hard to curb it. Cough. Following this, we shall not invite President Hu from the Armament Guild to award the badge for these two newly promoted armament masters. President Hu walked onto the stage and his face hung an amiable smile, but in Huang Yueli's eyes, it seemed like a grandfather teasing her. After President Hu awarded the first-tier armament master badge for them, he smiled at Huang Yueli. "Miss Bai, I know that your strength had gone beyond the first tier, but this certification only awards first-tier badge. If you require a higher-leveled badge, please do find some time to visit the Armament Guild personally. I will help you do the certification alone. But Skycloud City's branch can only award badges which are 4th tier and below, so if you require even higher certification, you will need to visit Soaring Heavens Continent's headquarters." Huang Yueli smiles. "Thank you President Hu for the pointers. Some days later, I will definitely need to drop by and trouble you." President Hu nodded. Tang Jinhua was shocked to hear that. He also knew that Huang Yueli's strength in armament refining was extraordinary and definitely not merely at first tier, but from how he saw it, to be able to be at second tier was already terrifying. Third tier definitely was the limit. But from President Hu's tone, could it be that Huang Yueli's armament refining standard had already reached 4th tier? This wasn't possible, right? He himself was only merely at 4th tier and moreover, he was already 30+ years old. In the end, even Jiang Tuxin also went on stage and made the final concluding speech, announcing the award of the honorary points to this round's newly promoted armament masters. According to tradition, those who had obtained a first-tier armament master badge would be able to gain 1 honorary point. But Jiang Tuxin had given Huang Yueli 3 this time. Normally this kind of reward which broke the rule would easily cause other students' displeasure, but this time round, no one raised any exception. Because Huang Yueli's outstanding performance had already deeply convinced everyone, Huang Yueli's face also revealed a sweet smile. This time, other than obtaining the Armament Master certification, to her, the biggest reap was to obtain the honorary point. With honorary points, she would be able to enter the 4th level of the scripture depository and take a look at what Bai Liu Feng had left for her. The next day, Huang Yueli left for the scripture depository early in the morning. Waiting for her was the same managing teacher as last time. But as compared to the previous time, the reverent attitude which the managing teacher had towards her had increased by several notches. Previously, Huang Yueli was only the new top student, and even if she had acquired the top 10 ranking in the martial arts stage, it would only meant that her future was boundless, but now, her status had jumped by 3 tier. Defeating Li Ziju, a renowned top genius in Celestial Light Academy, and now even becoming a true blue first-tier armament master. This kind of status and strength, even if it was Principal Jiang, he had to treat her with respect. The managing teacher didn't dare to slight her and personally welcomed her at the entrance, bringing her in. You can also listen on. The minute they entered the scripture depository, Huang Yueli went straight to the point and asked, "Teacher, my purpose in this visit is to enter the 4th level of the scripture depository. This time I've managed to obtain the honorary points, so I should be able to go in and take a look, right?" The managing teacher hesitated for a moment. Master Bai, I've already guessed your intention in this visit. But I wonder if you can still remember that according to the Academy's regulations, each person can only exchange for 2 sets of profound skills. Have you mastered the 2 manuscripts that you've borrowed from the scripture depository the last round? Although he asked that question, but he had already decided in his heart that Huang Yueli absolutely had not mastered it at all. Although she was an all-in genius, but the 2 manuscripts that she borrowed previously were not reasonable at all. One was the remnants of a heaven-level cultivation method and the preface didn't match the ending, whereas the other was an earth-attributed profound skill. Who within the Academy didn't knew that she was a metal and fire dual-attributed practitioner? These 2 books. Neither of it suited her at all. The managing teacher shook his head silently, thinking that he had already reminded this young lass previously that she must choose a manuscript which she could master. Otherwise, the next time, even if she had honorary points, she would not be able to enter the scripture depository. Who knew that Huang Yueli smiled instead. Of course I remember. I have already mastered one of the cultivation methods, so teacher, please allow me to demonstrate. Saying that, with a move from her right hand, a strong earth-attributed profound energy gathered beside her and very quickly, an earth wall formed right in front of her. Following the fluctuations from her surrounding profound energy, it continued to undulate variations. Managing teacher was so shocked that his mouth opened agape. This is the earth-attributed profound skill earth crevasse barrier. You managed to master it. Huang Yueli nodded. That's right. This is the manuscript which I had exchanged previously, and now that I've mastered it, may I choose another manuscript? Managing teacher was still in a daze and hadn't regained his senses. But, don't you have metal and fire dual attributes? Don't tell me. You also have an innate talent for earth attribute. Won't that mean you're triple attributed? How is that possible? Huang Yueli replied, my earth attribute innate talent isn't very good, it's just a little bit. Alright managing teacher, can I go in or not? Oh, yes. Master Bai, please enter. Your scope of jurisdiction now allows you to enter any level of the scripture depository, so please take your time to pick. Managing teacher nodded his head repeatedly as he sent her away. By the time he returned to his seat and thought back carefully, sweat started to form on his forehead. Earlier, Huang Yueli said her earth attribute innate talent isn't good. But if her innate talent wasn't good, how could she possibly master an earth-grade profound skill in such a short amount of time? Even practitioners with outstanding innate talents could not do it. If she referred this to her innate talent no good, then just how heaven-defying were her good innate talents? Was she telling the truth or just bluffing her way? Managing teacher was in the middle of a daze when suddenly a black figure flashed past him. Who's there? He stood up immediately and shot towards the scripture depository's entrance. But he couldn't see anyone after taking a careful check. Managing teacher thought it was strange and walked to and fro several rounds, checking everywhere but still didn't manage to see any signs of someone's appearance. That's strange. Earlier that figure, there was obvious signs of someone entering the scripture depository secretly. Could it be that I saw wrongly? Managing teacher scratched his head and returned to his position. You can also listen on. Anyway, there were many top experts sent over from Celestial Light Sect, watching over the scripture depository, and if the others didn't discover any problems, then it should meant that there wasn't any issues, right? Probably. He was overly suspicious. But at this moment, a black figure had silently entered the inner zone of the scripture depository and following right behind Huang Yueli from a safe distance. Huang Yueli walked in the secluded and uninhabited corridor, and she seemed to have sensed something as she turned around to take a look but did not see anything at all. Today, the number of people in the scripture depository is really very little. She sighed and silently continued on her way inside. The last time she came, she had already understood the layout of the scripture depository, so this time round, without any hesitation, she walked straight towards the 4th level. Third earthly branch Yang. Third day. Wu, seems to be this. She turned right and walked into the designated room, searching everywhere for the bookcase number which was inscribed onto the identity token which Bai Liu Feng had left for her. The number of students on the 4th level of the scripture depository was even lesser, and the entire room had only 3 to 4 people present, and without any exception, All of them were the top 10 ranking students in the martial arts stage or students who had made exceptional contributions to the academy, all of whom were legendary figures. Upon seeing Huang Yueli entering the room, some of them even stood up simultaneously and nodded to her. Huang Yueli casually nodded back but didn't engage in small talk. She had a very important matter to do right now, and if she were to get entangled with them, it would affect her proper business. Following that, left 11. Is it referring to the 11th row of shelving? What about upper 29? This shelving doesn't have 29 levels. Huang Yueli frowned as she looked left and right and finally found some clues. The 11th shelving on the left was a bookcase which was towards the end of the west and was just resting against the wall on the west side. As for the wall, it was decorated with beige tiles. Huang Yueli counted every single tile from top to bottom, and on the boundary of the 29th tile, she discovered something unusual. These tiles looked like it was very tidy and concentrated, and ordinary people would not be able to tell any difference. But to an armament master like Huang Yueli, the inside seemed to have something hidden within, and most likely, it was a mechanism. She turned around and looked around. This corner was very obscure and no one would even notice this place. She took a set of silk-threaded gloves from her space realm and put it on. Following that, she placed her slender fingers on the wall and carefully controlled her strength, searching the wall one by one. This entire duration lasted for 1 hour, and Huang Yueli had been very patiently moving her fingers slowly, using her sense of touch to feel the vibrations from the wall, and at the same time calculating in her mind. After some time, she frowned. How is that possible? I'm not able to find the mechanism to activate it. But very quickly, she recalled the scenario of the first time when she opened the mechanism when she was still in South Yu Kingdom. At that time, Bai Liu Feng had left behind a silk cage which rendered her helpless, but Little Phoenix told her the special way to activate the mechanism was to use her blood, which was left behind from the God Realm. Thinking of this, Huang Yueli removed her gloves and using her teeth to bite her finger, she dripped her blood onto the surroundings of the tiles. Brrr, a slight rubbing sound was heard. The 29th piece of tile flipped open from the outside and revealed a small hidden compartment within. Huang Yueli delightfully rushed over. That's great, it's finally open. You can also listen on. However, after she took a careful look, she was stunned and revealed a disappointed expression. What's going on? The inside of this is actually empty. What kind of riddle is father playing? Huang Yueli frowned as she squatted down slightly and inclining her head, she checked carefully and even used her fingers to touch the surrounds of the secret compartment, trying to find out if there were any other mechanisms which she had not discovered yet. But no matter how she looked, the secret compartment was as empty as it was. Furthermore, she discovered someone unusual. The surroundings of this secret compartment has obvious white scratches, and the chinks of the tiles are not that concentrated. This secret compartment seemed to have been opened before, and furthermore, the person who opened this definitely doesn't father's blood, so that person could only resort to activate this mechanism forcefully. The more Huang Yueli checked, the more serious her expression turned. Under normal circumstances, Bai Liu Feng's clue would definitely be given to his daughter only, and this mechanism could not be opened by any others. Since it had been opened and in such a forceful way, there was only one possibility, and that was someone found out that the location where Bai Liu Feng had hidden the treasure and found a chance to forcefully activate the hidden mechanism, then took away the item inside. No matter what Bai Liu Feng left behind, it had already been hijacked by someone. Thinking of this, Huang Yueli was extremely disappointed. She finally found her way here and thought of so many ways, conquering the difficulties just so that she could find out more about her identity and clues on her father and mother. But in the end it just ended here. Furthermore, the more important issue was that she didn't know who it was or how that person who took away the thing that Bai Liu Feng left behind. How did he find out about this clue? Huang Yue did a final check on the mechanism and verified that there were no other clues, so she could only close up the secret compartment. Looked like this time she could only return empty-handed. Anyway, she still had 2 honorary points which had not been utilized, so if there was a need, she could still enter another day. The most pressing matter on hand now was to find a way to understand clearly where Bai Liu Feng's item had gone to and in whose hands was it in now. Huang Yueli was not in the mood to stay any longer in the scripture depository and prepared to leave directly. When she passed by the entrance, the managing teacher saw her empty hands and his two eyes almost popped out. "I say, Master Bai, you're leaving just like that. You didn't choose any manuscript at all. I've got to remind you that each time you enter the scripture depository, even if you didn't choose any cultivation method, 1 honorary point will still be deducted." "Why? You want to leave just like that? You're really not going to select any manuscript?" Huang Yueli shook her head. "Forget about it. It's not that she wanted to waste, but she really had no mood on this aspect, and on the other hand, according to the regulations of the scripture depository, she must master 1 cultivation method before choosing another one. If she managed to find another clue tomorrow but had not mastered that cultivation method, then wouldn't she be caught unprepared? Those cultivation methods which entered her eyes were not that easy to master. Managing teacher was dumbstruck as he watched her leaving, feeling that he had developed some form of hallucination. How could there be anyone who would waste 1 chance to enter the scripture depository but didn't even select any manuscript? When Huang Yueli walked out of the scripture depository, she suddenly felt that someone was watching her. She turned around and took a look but only saw the managing teacher looking at her blankly and couldn't help but frown. You can also listen on. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.